That's not what we're supposed to have. Do that.
Crap. See 7 of you on the Facebook. Thank you. You're early. And for once, I'm early. That doesn't happen much. So thank you all for being there. We will be live in about 2 to 3 minutes. I wish I had something terribly exciting to do for you for the pre-show. I really don't. Other than to say that I'm excited to have Dwayne. Dwayne's not in the Zoom room yet, so I'm wondering if he forgot. And if he did, it's going to be a really short show. And depending on how long Dwayne stays, I'm going to decided to try to open up about something a bit personal and interesting, or what I hope will be interesting later in the program. The USA is playing in a World Cup qualifier today. Of course, they put it on a subscription-only pay-per-view service, which is, very good to grow the game. It's a really great way to grow the game when it's inaccessible to, most of the population for the added price. Good job, US Soccer. It's the way to help things. Looking out for the little guy. Anyway, we will be live very, very shortly. And for those of you who are in well, now it's down to 4. I don't know how that changes, but for those of you that are here with us for the pre-show, please, you can call this program. Call in and be a part of the program. It doesn't hurt a bit. Promise. Doesn't hurt a bit. Oh, goodness. Okay, kids, what do you say we go live? Oh, that's the wrong mouse. That usually, that's not good when we do the wrong mouse. Let's go live, kids. Here we go. Oh, it's the 501. Oh, there it is.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know and young enough to do. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right. A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. 'Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true. So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system. Did you know it was called the Terran solar system? It's a bit of a science fiction-y thing, but I think it's caught on. In the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy, this is the Kennedy effect for the 10th of October. I had to remind myself of what the date was. And I did actually have to remind myself of what the date was. But it's the 10th, I swear. I looked and I think I have it right now. The 10th of October, 2021. I continue to be astounded, really, that every week that I come here to visit with you, and you, for as kind as you are, all of you, to give me the time to enter your lives on a Sunday, how this year just keeps flowing through, how time passes, how quickly time passes. And something I want to get into a little bit about related to the passage of time in just a moment. Our guest today is Dwayne Heisler of SEIU. He tried to say clearly, said the radio person who can't speak clearly. He is due here probably around 5:30, because I can only assume, knowing Dwayne, that he is probably only done about 27 different Zooms and events and meetings and so on today. So he is due with us around 5:30. So you're stuck with me for about half an hour. I hope you will stay. I hope you will. Actually, this would be an excellent time for you all, and I should put the number up right now, for you all to take part in the program. This would be a wonderful time for us to chat. Look at him changing this name on the screen on the fly. I apparently can't talk and type at the same time like most people can. This would be an excellent time for us all to have a chat while we wait for Dwayne. Let me, of course, also say the following. Let's get the business end of the program done, shall we? Oh, goodness. Dry throat. Whoa, it's going to be a day. It's going to be a day. You know what's funny? I don't know about the rest of you. This will be interesting to see if anybody else happens to even mention this in the chat. There appears to be 10 of you with me right now, which is awesome. I'm so blessed. I'm really, really blessed, and I appreciate every single one of you. Please feel free to drop comments, questions, or so on in Facebook. Let me get through all of that right now. If wherever you are on Facebook, and we've shared the program to about 90 plus different places this week, wherever you might be on Facebook, we appreciate you. We thank you. We're so happy that you're here, every single one of you. You can stay among any of the wonderful pages and groups, the Outrun Coalition, Lehigh Valley Young Dems, the New Deal Democrats, the Progressive Pints group, which I love. This Irish guy loves a group called Progressive Pints, the Hub for Progress, the Union County Democrats. There's just so many groups. Ridley Township, Dan Corcoran for commissioner, his group, since I thought of Ridley. There are Lycoming County Democrats and Lycoming Progressives. There's just so many groups. Lehigh Valley Progressive Network, and of course April's group, I Thrive Community, and of course the Hot101.net and the TCP groups. There's just so many different places where we share the program. I could never name them all. I do occasionally name them during the pre-show, and then I start the show late because the list is so long. We're so grateful for every single group, literally every group. I don't care if there's 5 of you in that group, 2 of you in that group, or 10,000 of you in that group. The fact that you allow us into the group means a lot to us. I take it as a sign of trust, and I appreciate that very, very much. Wherever you may be, across the Facebook universe, you can stay right there. Enjoy the program in the group that you're in. The only thing I would say is if you want to interact with us, I need you at the home group Facebook page for the program, and that would be That Other Side of Information. That is our home group Facebook page for everything related to this program. That is where I will see you. That is where I can say hello. That is where I will answer your questions, take your comments, read your comments, enter them into the record, as it were, and make you part of this program. The phone line is open right now. It is open right now, 267-227-9189. And for those of you playing along at home, you can, we usually have the bingo card. George is not with us this week as he is not feeling well. Then I'll get to that in a second. You can, if you want to play a fun drinking game, take a shot every time I reach for the wrong computer mouse, because I always reach for this one, but this one isn't for this computer. It's for the other computer in front of me. Let's see how many times we do that today. That said, oh, somebody already called? How did I miss that? I guess we're not ringing. I guess it's not ringing. No, it's not. No, that's great. Well, the speakers are, but the phone line is not. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, great. Okay. Well, I will keep. I will try to keep an eye on the Google Voice to see why that's happening. Now, I had to update Google. Oh, there we go. Maybe now it's ringing. Maybe you can hear it too. Hopefully you can. I did that earlier, and supposedly everything was working okay. I had to update Google Chrome again. Google Chrome's a very interesting thing because it seems like every time I open it, I have to update it. So whatever that's about. But anyway, hopefully I will hear. I don't know who rang in earlier. I apologize deeply. It appears you were here for 20 minutes. Could that be right? No, I don't know. Anyway, I apologize, but I did not hear the phone ring. Oh, 439. That must have been that was probably a telemarketer, which is fun. You know, the Google Voice thing, you know, that's how Google makes money, isn't it? They sell these Google Voice numbers around. Also, hey, sisters, brothers, friends, family at hot101.net, thank you for allowing us back into your lives again. However briefly, on this Sunday, October 10. If you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, you're really missing it. You are missing tremendous programming all week long, great DJs, really tremendous music, keep you going. Some of the DJs do programs on weeknights where you think party music wouldn't exactly be appropriate. Well, let me tell you, the number of folks who jump in there, listen, and seem to get re-energized and feel good, even whether they're working a second shift or whether they're even getting ready for bed. You would think great mixes and dance music wouldn't get you ready for bed. And it's not to say that they bore you, they don't, but there's a relaxation part of it too. You kind of get yourself lost in the music a bit. They do a great job. And we're so proud to be part of that family, be part of the hot101.net family. If you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, it is very, very simple. The web address is the name. It's hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, you can go to the Apple App Store and download the hot101.net app and listen directly through there. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and find the app for hot101.net and listen directly. And also, of course, if you have the TuneIn Radio app, which works on any type of mobile phone device, LG, Motorola, the Google Pixel, all of it, you can go to the TuneIn Radio app, go to the search bar and hit hot101.net, search for hot101.net. You will find us and you can listen to us there. And of course, our friends and family at TCP, the Culture Professional, thank you for being here yet again. There's something odd going on today. I don't know if any of you out there are feeling it, but there is, and of course the phone line is open. Let me say that one more time, and I hope that I will hear you this time, that I will hear it ring in my ears this time, because I missed it before. And I think it was out of the room when I was out of the room, which doesn't bother me so much because I think it was a telemarketer, but that the phone line is open. It's 267-227-9189, 227-9189, and we are expecting our guest around 5:30, the bottom of the hour. That said, there's an odd thing seems to be going on around my circle of peoples today, and that is some type of weird, I don't want to say illness because I don't know that everybody's ill or sick necessarily, but there is something going on. George is not here with us today because he is in bed, has the sweats, he has a stomach issue. I have had the sweats and a stomach issue and a migraine most of the day, and I still do. And that's why I'm kind of swallowing a little bit. You know, one of the things they teach you in broadcasting school is how to keep talking while you can swallow, because obviously you generate, you know, saliva as you talk. It's just getting a little gross perhaps, but how to get rid of it in a smooth way so that it doesn't get picked up on the mic and doesn't become part of your broadcast. And we're going to be testing that out a lot today. The dry throat is because I slammed down a couple of Tums before I sat down to speak with you today because my stomach has just been all over the place. I guess the coffee didn't sit well this morning or something. I really don't know. And I've had a migraine most of the day. Kristen is not feeling well. As I said, George is okay. The other folks that I've had casual contact with through the day, there just seems to be something off today. I don't know if it's the damp, yet humid, yet rainy, cool, but not because it's humid kind of conditions that we're having in the Commonwealth here today. I feel bad for the folks at Oktoberfest. It is the final weekend of Oktoberfest at the Arts Quest Center. They had a pretty lousy day. They had a pretty decent day yesterday, but a pretty lousy day today. That stinks because we're fun. I enjoyed that. It was a good bit of fun when Kristen and I went there last week, at least up until about 9 p.m. when it turned into a Lehigh University frat party, and we appeared to be the oldest people there, and then we beat it out of there. But that's something else that I want to just. So if you're feeling a little off today, my mind is drifting because I still have a migraine, and I think my mind is drifting a little bit. I'm having a very time tracing my thoughts from A to Z in a logical pattern here, aren't I? If you're feeling a little off today, hey, maybe it's that first like significant weather change. We're not quite used to it yet, and maybe it's got everybody thrown off. I'm not sure. But it does seem that an awful lot of people that I've had any kind of contact with today seem to all be feeling a bit off. So maybe it is. Maybe it is that. Maybe it is that the weather change. We're not wired. I mean, we're wired for weather change, but you all know that sometimes, especially as you get older, by the way, it takes you a longer time to adjust to the weather changes. You know, when I was a kid, winter never bothered me. I loved playing out in the snow. I could get soaked through. I never really got cold. It didn't bother me. Now I can't take winter. It just, the wind goes straight through my body, not around it, not on it, and just through it, and chills me to the bone. I much prefer summer and the warmer bits of spring and the warmer more summer parts of fall. The weather really does seem to bother me the older I get, and perhaps it's just a thing going around today. I'm not really sure, but it does seem to be a thing. I wanted to bring this up while we should be welcoming our guest right around the bottom of the hour. This is something that's not even political, because I've been watching it for the last several weeks, and it seems to have really changed today in a bad way. And this is probably an odd topic to get into when our guest could be here literally any moment, or at least within the next 15 minutes. Reach for the wrong mouse again, take a shot if you're playing along. Some of you have seen, many of you have heard my older cat, Sis, on this program. She has wandered into the studio and made her opinions known. I believe there was an earlier program where I tried to put my phone video through the same Zoom so you all could see her. If I knew how to do it without bothering you with watching me try to figure out how to share something on a screen, I would put a picture of her up. Sis is on her way to a better place. She is diabetic. She has hyperthyroid and irritable bowel syndrome. She's wasting away in front of us. I'm supposed to be starting her on some insulin tomorrow because the pharmacy didn't have it. I was hoping to start it Friday night. We won't be starting it now, probably till Monday night. Her muscle mass is essentially gone. Her coat is somehow still very pretty, and her face is still very pretty. And she doesn't look her age. We've found her on the street a long time ago when I was still married, back in the dark ages when I was still married. And she's been with me at a minimum 18 years, at the most probably 20. And it's a funny thing. You know, an overwhelming percentage of American healthcare costs take place in the final 5 years of life because we fear death. Generally speaking, as a species, we fear death. And I see this conflict in myself right now as it has to do with cis. You know, the interesting things, I say funny thing like I don't think about it, but it's not funny. The interesting thing about our furry family members is that they're a constant in our lives. You know, I was devastated when my father passed away. I'm still not over it. And I suspect I never will be until I hope I'm lucky enough to see him again. But I didn't see or even talk to my dad every single day. And with the exception of the occasional vacation or an illness or a hospital stay or something like that, I've seen sis every single day for 20 years. She has seen me through divorce, through the loss of family, through good relationships and bad, through politics. We've moved, sis and I, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. She has seen 3 other cats and a dog pass in front of her. It's going to be very, very interesting when she's gone. Because these souls, these beautiful, beautiful souls, these cruel twists of God that he should make their lifespans so much shorter than ours when they deserve it more than we do, it's going to be a terrible, terrible loss. And I think part of what makes that loss so awful is that I see her every day. And I have watched her waste away. I have watched her go from the cat that I would take to the vet and they would say she's a little overweight. I never really thought she was. Down to we desperately need to get weight on her. And I have to say she's almost to the point. She won't. I don't think this will happen, but she's almost to the point where if at the end of this program, if I walk back downstairs and she's gone, I won't be shocked. But the emptiness that I know is coming, because I've seen this now 4 times. The very first cat that we rescued off the street, my ex-wife and I, our dog, and 2 other cats. And it makes me wonder both why we continue to do this, to put ourselves through this kind of pain, why there's such a cruel twist of fate that God should make their lives so much shorter than ours. And that same fear of death. Why are we so kind, generally, at the end of life to our furry family when we can take them to a trusted vet, or I hope a trusted vet, and say it's time? We're going to ease the pain. We're going to ease the passing. We're not going to do every single thing we can do. We're not going to milk a healthcare system for millions and millions of dollars, as was done to my father, in the vague hope that we can just have a couple more minutes. We are odd creatures that way. I think we hang on so much to our loved ones when they are sick and in pain, furry or human, out of our own fear of death. There's a part of me that hopes if we can make it to tomorrow evening and I can start to get some insulin in her, that she'll feel better and that she'll have a few more months. There's another part that wishes she'd just be asleep when I go back downstairs. And it really occurred to me today, because she's not eating today. I've really had to beg her to eat. And that's usually a sign that we're getting close. And it just made me think, because you've heard her here. I honestly can't remember if I've ever picked her up and put her in the camera. I think I have. I honestly can't remember. I should know that. But you've all heard her. She's marched in this room and made her opinion well known more than once. And sometimes that opinion is just shut up, get off of that microphone, and come down and feed me, or let me lay on your lap. Well, it's going to be an empty lap. It's going to be an empty lap pretty soon. And I don't care what color your skin is, how old you are, how young you are, what gender you identify as. If you have a furry family member, then you know what's coming here. And maybe you've been through it before. But I do think that's what makes it different. I lost my nephew when he was only 24 years old. But again, I didn't see him every single day. I haven't been the same since his passing. These deaths, these losses, they chip away at you. As if we were somehow made of stone. Someone comes along with a hammer and a chisel and takes a piece every time we lose someone. I have had my share. We all have. We all have. It is, to use the old cliche, it is the circle of life. We are not born to live forever. We will eventually pass. And she will too. And I know that she's not going to make it easy, because she's too damn stubborn. She's too damn stubborn to just go to sleep. But I hope she does. Because the thought of having to do it again is going to be, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep saying goodbye. But I do think, I'm wondering what you all think. I'm happy to see your comments. If you'd wish to call in, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. I'm wondering if, for the animal lovers out there, for our furry family members, or I guess the scaled family members if you have a reptile, If you feel the same way, do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? It's the ubiquitousness of them. She's here every day. She's here when I leave for work. She's here when I wake up in the morning. She's here when I come home. And it's just not going to be that way for much longer. It's just not going to be that way. It's going to get interesting around here. It really is. And every week, on this program, we talk about things like, as we're going to discuss with Dwayne when he gets here. He's a little delayed. Please don't beg out on the program. Dwayne will be here. You're not here to see me. I know you're here to listen to Dwayne. He'll be here. He was rushing, and I told him to take time, be safe. We're here. We're not going anywhere. I'm just wondering what you think. This is, every week we talk about things like the minimum wage and socialism, the moniker of socialism, and the minimum. Well, I said minimum wage, and democratic socialism and fascism, Republicans and Democrats and conservatives and progressives, and making life better for every single resident of this country, not just the citizens and not just the white ones and not just the male, but everybody. And I find it, I know that every politician, everyone, right, left, and center, they have a kind of a hidden priority, if that's the right word for it. There's usually forgive the pun, a pet issue that they have. It's not a mainstream issue. It's not a well-known issue. It's not something that we might even list in the first 10, 20, or 30 things. If I should ever run for office again, and I don't think that's going to happen, if I should, I can tell you that one of my less well-known priorities will be animal welfare. All the way from domestic abuse of domesticated animals, the mindless abuse of wild animals, the oversaturation and over fascination with hunting and killing anything with a heartbeat, all the way to factory farming, which is to not get it off into a tangent about eating meat. You want to eat meat, go for it. I actually happen to think it's a part of the circle of life, but we could certainly do it in a much more humane way. We actually have a call. Let me get to it. Area code 570-407. You are on the air. Please give me your first name and where you're calling from.
My name is Mary Ann, and I am calling from Duryea, Pennsylvania.
Welcome, Mary Ann. Thank you for being part.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me on. I just wanted to touch a little bit on what you were speaking about with your cat, and my heart goes out to you. I know and understand the pain you are going through right now. My baby is going to be 12 years old this year, and it's not looking good for him. And,
I should say, Mary Ann, just to be fair, it's not about me. I'm certainly not trying to put any focus or I'm so grateful for your words. Please understand. I'm just not, it's not about me. But it's interesting, and I'm happy that you, I guess happy, you know what I mean by happy, that you can understand where we're coming from. It's an odd thing, isn't it? These wonderful souls, these unconditional souls who grace our lives, but they don't seem to grace them for quite long enough, isn't it?
I couldn't agree with that sentiment. I would give whatever I could to have another 10, 20 years with my dog. Absolutely.
I don't have a lot of time left myself. And there are more days behind me than in front of me. And with the exception of one certain person and the time that I will or will not have with her, I'm comforted by that. Actually, one of the very few things that provides me comfort. But I would definitely give that time, or at least split it in half, with, the ones I've lost. That's for sure. But it is an interesting thing to think about. Our families, our pastors, our friends, heck, even our neighbors. I don't see my neighbors every single day. I definitely do not see my family every single day. We are a odd bunch. We are an estranged bunch. That's perhaps a topic for a different day. But that darn cat, God help me. I see her every day.
I know.
And it's going to be an odd thing. And I'm just curious. I know you're going to be, I don't want to give too much away, but I know you're going to be joining me in sometime in the next two programs.
Yeah.
But don't you think that's with all the division that there is in this country and in our Commonwealth, even arguably more so, shouldn't this be a simple thing that we can agree on? That these beautiful souls need a better protection, or need better protection, or deeper sense of protection, a deeper level of protection. It seems to me that we are never going to solve the problem of animal abuse until we change the status under which these animals exist. Sis is not property to me. But until we change that from property to something perhaps more akin to the way children are looked at in the eye of the law, I just don't know that it's going to get any different. Do you have any quick thoughts before I turn over to my guest? Even though you're so kind to call me and look at me cutting you off, it's pretty rude. But do you have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts, Mary?
I don't, but I absolutely agree with you, and I'm glad Dwayne is now joining the show, so I'm going to be spending with it.
Well, that's kind of you to call. And listen, tell everybody that you know, Mary, and you called and you survived. Nothing bad happened to you. So the interactive part of this program does actually happen. Phone calls are welcome, folks. Look at that. Marianne survived a phone call. Thank you for calling, Marianne. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
5:36 Eastern time here in the United States. This is the Kennedy Effect live for October 10, 2021. I am proud to let me first get through the business end real quick. Wherever you are on Facebook, 90 plus places that we've shared the program this week. Wherever you may be, you can stay right there and enjoy. That's awesome. Fine. Great. Feel free to stay right there. However, if you'd like to take part in the discussion that we're going to be having with Dwayne, please come to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. You will see the video in the timeline there. Tap on it, expand it. It'll fill up the screen. Underneath is the place to comment. I will see your comments. I will see you enter the room. I will say hello. I will get distracted. I will make stupid faces at you. All that fun stuff. Please be part of the program. And if you have questions for Dwayne, because you're not here to talk to me. Talk to the guests. They know everything. I'm just the guy that talks. You can put your questions and comments in there for Dwayne as well. That Other Side of Information on Facebook. Hot101.net, our sisters and brothers, friends and family. Thank you sincerely and deeply for allowing us to be part of the Hot101.net family, wherever you might be listening, literally around the world, on your desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetoothing in the car, and of course now smart speakers. You can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. And my new favorite game is to say it loud enough into the mic so that if you have an Alexa, she switches to hot101.net at my prompting. And of course, TCP, the cultured professional, and I will keep the phone line on the screen for you to join the conversation, just as Marianne did, unscathed. See, live talking to the globe doesn't hurt a bit. It's just a phone conversation. We welcome now our guest. I hope you did not rush, sir. Thank you that you are safe and everything, and all that fun stuff. I know Sundays are probably extremely busy for you. I'm assuming I told the folks before you arrived that you probably only had a light day Sunday. What about 27 other events, Zooms, meetings, probably from the crack of dawn until now. But we welcome our guest, and that is Dwayne Heisler. Dwayne, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Well, thank you for finally being here, sir. It's been a long invitation. But then again, you do this basically for a living. So the last thing you want to do on a Sunday night is sit here and listen to me prattle on. So thank you for being here. I am very, very grateful. Let's jump straight into it with what is our standard opening question. And that is, who is Dwayne Heisler and how did you get here?
I think I've been trying to answer that for a while. Like, who am I? Right? Yeah. Let's see. Like everyone else who is, living the life and working, at least like the kind of work that we do within progressive circles and within the community, I wear a bunch of different hats. So I guess my primary hat is where I work. And so I work with SEIU, Healthcare PA, that's Service Employees International Union. I did work for state council for several years, which is all the locals for the state of Pennsylvania. And then I switched jobs to SEIU Healthcare, and just in time too, because of, working for a healthcare union during a pandemic, pretty important stuff. And our union is service employees. And so we have a wide range of people who work in healthcare facilities. That would be in hospitals, in long-term care and nursing homes, home health care for the state. And so there's these different sectors that we actually represent. And they are people that are the people in dietary who make the food, the people in housekeeping who clean the rooms, the people who, the technicians, nurses, the people who are in the service industry, in healthcare. We're the largest healthcare union in the state of Pennsylvania. And I'm really proud of that work that we do. It's so important and so necessary. And our members are amazing. They really are heroes. And so that's my day job. But on the side, I'm very active with the Democratic Party.
Don't say side like it's one side. You are a many faceted. There's a lot of sides. There's a lot. You talk about wearing hats. Oh my goodness, holy hats.
So yeah, I'm the chair of the Progressive Caucus for the state of Pennsylvania for as part of the PA Dems, the Democratic Party, but I'm also on the executive committee for the state Democratic Party, in addition to representing Columbia County as an elected state committee member in my second term there. And so I do a lot of party work. And within that, I've done a lot of training. For years, I was the chair of Voter Outreach and Registration Committee. I was an officer on the LGBTQ caucus, so very involved with the state party. But then I'm also involved with progressive organizations. I helped to form one of the first indivisible state groups in the state. We did Columbia County Indivisible, which now, after all these years, is part of Action Together NEPA, where I'm on the board of directors for that, which is an incredible organization, the voice of progressive Northeast Pennsylvania. Do a lot of work there. I'm a hub facilitator, which is in kind of the Susquehanna Valley, covers, 8 or 9 counties probably, where I'm part of the leadership team there. So between progressive organizations, the Democratic Party, and the unions, I kind of have the trifecta, right, of being involved politically. I don't know if there's anything else to add to that.
And you might even sleep 5 or 10 minutes a day.
And I do a lot of podcast work. I do a lot of radio work as well. I worked for a radio station years ago. I called in on a radio program for a contest, and the owner of the radio station heard my voice and said, do you need a job? And at that point I was like, well, I've always thought about radio. And so I started working part-time there. Yeah.
I'm reminded of Family Guy. Brian goes to the radio booth at the fair, speaks to the microphone, and the program director says, hey, you have a great voice there. You know, as they say in radio, if you put that on the radio, people will listen to it. And
that's right. So, but I enjoy early music. And so I've been involved I was the director of the Bloom Consort for years, early music. So early music is medieval, Renaissance, and Baroque music, both vocal and instrumental. I play viola da gamba, the viola da legs, the bass viol, tenor viol. I play a viol, medieval fiddle. I play wind instruments too, recorders, crumhorn, cornemuse, all of those things. Was very involved in the early music world too. And that was kind of what kept me sane with the politics, I think, is kind of retreating to my music. But yeah, I've been really blessed with a voice, and I always have been. I remember as a young kid, I quit the choir when my voice changed because all of a sudden I couldn't sing anything. I was in the basement. Even like when I used to do gaming, like on World of Warcraft, they would say I'd have this Vin Diesel imitation, and I would get on, this is when we had like 40-person raids and the headsets, and I was leading the healing priest, and they'd say, Celebrant, that was my character's name, Celebrant, the priest, right? Do Vin Diesel. And so I would kind of like get into this thing, and I would go, you keep what you kill. It all freaked out. They would have a lot of fun. And
I mean, you could almost do Groot.
Yeah, I could, I guess. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I've been really blessed with a voice. Before I went to college, I'd only ever been in New York and Pennsylvania, well, New Jersey to drive through. But my music took me on tour to Japan, took me up and down the U.S. seaboard. And travel was important to me, and my music really helped me to do a lot of that traveling, going on tours and with various ensembles, and so really enjoyed that music. So yes, a lot of different hats, and I enjoy them all, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions. So yeah.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, if I could combine two questions. You've heard the program before, and I'm grateful for that. We do a tremendous amount of history here, you know that. When we talk outside of this program in the different groups that we are involved in, I'm not as deep into it. I'm a periphery guy. I seem to be held out on the periphery. I do talk about history very, very much, the history of our party, the history of our policies, the proof, the historical proof that what we stand for works. But if we take the heavy bit of that side off, why? I'm very blessed that I have a lot of expatriate friends. In fact, my best mate just moved back to the UK. I suspect what'll be for good. The occasional visit, but you don't visit a different country like you visit your neighbors around the block. So I don't know when that next time will be that I see him. I suspect not for a good long time. We don't travel much as a society in the United States. Americans, generally speaking, we're almost xenophobic in that. There are wonderful and beautiful and tremendous things to see here on our own continent, but we don't travel much. We know less languages than most of the rest of the country, the rest of the planet. We also are more history ignorant compared to the rest of the planet. How important was travel to you? How important from an education standpoint, from learning, not maybe your own personal growth, but just learning, just absorbing things? How important is it from the music standpoint to keep the type of music that you study and that you play going? How does the history of that inform you? How does the travel inform you? How does the history of the music that you play and study and teach inform you?
So
it might have been a decent question because you're looking up here. Humans always look up here for the answers.
I'm thinking about several things. I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about is being a young kid in a very poor home on welfare in Brooklyn. third floor apartment. You turn on the lights and the roaches run, paint peeling, not having enough food in the house. And the only real book we had was this giant like dictionary, because when you'd go for groceries at the A&P grocery store, if you bought enough groceries, you'd get like the letter A, and then next week you get the letter B. And so you filled out, you had this giant like dictionary encyclopedia thing. And that held up the corner of our couch because it was broken. And that was like the only book in the house for a while. But then I started to be exposed to other books. And one thing that kind of struck me was that, wow, I actually don't have to go there to learn about it. And because I felt like I was never going to get anywhere. There was this hopelessness there of like, what makes you think you can actually go out in the world and travel? You know, that just didn't even occur to me. Like that was just not possible. But I thought, oh, I can read about like the Roman Empire in this book, and so I was always interested in other places and traveling. That was just something that was really important to me. And so the intersection of that with music, when you're looking at early music, the most famous composer is anonymous because we don't know who did it. Some of this music that I've been exposed to is beautiful. One of my favorite books to play out of is the Odd Hecaton, which was written in 1501. It was the first piece of printed music that was done on a printing press. And so it's like 100 songs, like the top hits of the time. It was released in Italy. But the thing is that there's 3 missing. There's only 97. Like we don't even know what the other 3 pieces were. And some of the really early pieces, the fact that they survived at all is a miracle. Like I've had the chance to sing the Michaud Mass, and Michaud was a medieval, early Renaissance, late medieval composer that was so ahead of his time. And to think that I actually sang his Mass, which was the original Mass, which was dedicated when when Notre Dame was built, like that's really pretty remarkable to be able to do that. And there's a different way of looking at early music. I think in today's society, we kind of look at like big things and we break them into their smallest components. We're constantly doing that. But when you're looking at early music, even when you're thinking about how to approach a piece, how to play a piece, you're part of a bigger whole. And so it goes the other way. You think about the larger beats and 1 or 2 beats per measure, not this 4/4 timing. And that really throws modern musicians. But it was kind of like we are a part of something bigger, as opposed to let's break this down to its smallest component. And it's just a completely different way of looking at the world. And so why did I get involved in politics? Like, how does that influence and connect me with all of that? I would say that it's probably because I'm an optimist, and that might sound like kind of weird. In fact, I could see my tombstone saying something like, he was an optimist, and I think that's pretty funny. But well, I don't know. I always have been around people and influenced by people that have helped me to kind of do things and to get things done. And I really do not appreciate our opposition. It always tells us that we can't do things, like for this reason or that reason, it can't be done. And I don't believe in that. I strive to prove that to be false. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm progressive, because I believe we can have good stuff. And I believe that when we come together, we're all in this together, and we can have good things together. We just have to figure out how to make it happen. And I think part of that was being exposed to music and the wonders of travel, especially when I initially believed that was not possible.
Does the history of some of what you do take you kind of almost take you outside your own brain at times? You mentioned the collection of manuscript music from 1508, I think you mentioned, or 1502. Does the scale of just the time scale of some of these things kind of make you sometimes step back and go, whoa, 1502, that's
nothing. There's been early pieces from the 1300s, 1200s, things like looking at some really old music. The time is something, but I think what's even more remarkable, especially if there are lyrics, like I've done a lot of a cappella work, madrigals, motets, lute songs, and just looking at early music, that I'm not a particularly religious person, although I've worked with like I've done Sephardic music, I've done all kinds of sacred music. It's just the words are just incredibly moving. Like I have literally dug into a piece of music and have seen the connection of why the music is doing what it's doing to express the words that it's saying in that moment, and have been moved to tears. I mean, it is just so, there is such a beautiful way that these pieces have been crafted. And you would think if they've lasted for hundreds of years like that, it must be something special. And so it's just, some of it is just incredibly moving. And then, you know, you do that, and there's no, and that's the thing. Like if you're listening to some polyphony, like my ensemble, the Bloom Consort, we'll do some. We've done like 8-part music, and there's only 8 of us in the ensemble, so we're all on our own parts. And you know, with this polyphony, there's no melody. It's quite. And so when you're directing something like that, and you're able to hear the various parts, which is very challenging to be able. You're not just listening to the whole thing. You're actually listening to the parts and the pieces and how they work together and the timing of those things. It's really hard to hold anything else in your head in that moment. You're really absorbed into the music. And so it is a real release from, there's no way to do that well, at least not for me. I'm not that, I can't be like thinking about the what's happening with the Democratic Party, or what union, you know, thing is happening, like what, you know, at the same time when I'm immersed in an ensemble, you know, recreating a moment in time from hundreds of years ago, that's moving.
Let's build on that allegory a tiny bit before we get to the top of the hour. We'll reset, and then maybe we'll get into the deeper meat and potatoes, so to speak. But you just mentioned that 8-part ensemble, and you're all doing your own parts, and that you are all off in your own direction, so to speak, but yet you're not.
Right.
You are an ensemble. So is this not an allegory for, and if I'm repeating what you said, because I've got, you know, all this stuff going on in front of me, I do sometimes, and I'm an old man, so sometimes I do get distracted, but isn't that kind of an allegory for the work that we do within a political realm? It is there's 8 of you, you're each playing your own piece of music, so to speak, but that music is all tied together. If one of you plays and goes off in a totally different direction, the whole ensemble falls apart. So you are individuals, but individuals within a group. And oh, by the way, might be a gross overgeneralization, but isn't that what community is? Isn't that what a society is? Individuals within a larger group.
Well, when one of the parts goes off the rails, it's almost like a wheel with one side flat, and it kind of spins out of control, and we're all looking at each other trying. The hard thing is getting back in, and the easiest way to do that is just completely stop, hear where those entrances might come in, and figure it out and get back in. And then it's like, oh no, we've lost the second alto. Oh no, there goes the soprano. Like we're falling off. It's like these, but then, you know, sometimes it gets held together, and sometimes it comes back. It can actually like rejuvenate. But yes, and you know, Jeff, I'm working on a recent project with SEIU Healthcare called Healthcare Voices. And it's a select group of individuals from all sectors, from nursing homes, from hospitals, that are doing podcasts and they're doing radio work. Because if we're really trying to get our messaging out there, we have to be firing on all cylinders, not just the letters to the editor or the television like interview, or, you know, those, it's not only those and the digital work that you do, but gosh, if you want to reach a small rural community in Pennsylvania, get on the radio that actually covers the football game, right? Like, you know, there's a whole, we talk about how young people are not involved. Well, I don't know how many people are buying the local newspaper, so you're not reaching them. You know, we always talk about meeting people where they are, and then some of us don't know how the hell to do it, right? You got to meet them where they are. And so this group is quite amazing. And the joy that I'm finding in this group right now is that they're all different. They have different backgrounds that they come from. They speak in different terms. They have different experiences. They have different stories about who they are and their work in healthcare. But yet when we put 2 or 3 of them together on a podcast or a radio show, something amazing happens, and you can hear these different perspectives that all come together and create something that's greater than their individual parts. And that's what early music is. And so I'm finding it in different ways through these healthcare voices, this team of people that are really prepared to dig in, to do the comms work, to be super prepared on a topic and tell their own personal story and tie that in together, which can be incredibly moving.
Is it, and does all of that continue to feed into your optimism? Because it's difficult. It's difficult to be optimistic these days, isn't it?
Well, Jeff, if we're not having fun, we're not doing it the right way.
Well, if you want
And
to talk about,
and this is hard work. I mean, we're talking with, our members, the work group, people doing like home health care who are making poverty wages, who don't have health care themselves, who don't get vacation time, who are dealing with loved ones who want the dignity to be able to live at home. And this is true in all the sectors, the tough work that they're doing. It is so inspiring to be around these frontline heroes, these frontline healthcare workers that are like, you know what? I want to make sure that my industry is one that is respected. We should be respected, and we're willing to fight for it. And there is nothing, I can't think of anything more inspiring than to see people, these frontline healthcare workers digging in and actually doing this. And then in turn, I see what they're doing. I comment on it, and they're lifted as well. And it becomes this cycle where we can lift each other. And that's what it's all about, being able to, that's how you get things done. I mean, the work that we've done during a pandemic has just been incredible. And there's so much more to do.
It's community, it's society. Yeah. We can be individuals. I may not enjoy the same music that you do. You may not enjoy the same music I do. I obviously have a deep love of world football. You may not share that with me, but at the same time, the stuff that we don't share, there's just as much that we do. And if we were neighbors and literally live next to each other, if your house is on fire, mine's in trouble too. And we do seem to have lost that to an extent. And if we haven't lost it, at least we've been convinced that it's not important anymore. And it is important. If your house is on fire and mine's next to you, what happens to you matters to me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And that's why we're progressives. And sadly, our opposition, the word that comes to the surface is selfish, incredibly selfish. I just saw an interview with someone that says, you know what you do with your life is none of my business. And if you get sick, that's none of my business. And if you need, I'm not going to be, and I just keep thinking about, and this person was a very religious person, like, my God, like Christ gave up his very life for this religion. And you're like talking about how you don't care what happens to your neighbor. Like, seriously, like, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the reasons why I'm not religious, and I probably shouldn't be going here, it just seems like so much of it is selfish. Like the whole fight for, call me old fashioned, but I believe if you work for a living, you should earn a living. Right. And to talk to someone about that, and say, and someone's like, well, if they're going to get a raise, then what about the rest of us? And that just screams selfishness. Like, it's a scarcity mentality.
And by the way, the rest of you will get one too.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's like the waters that come up and lift all the boats, right?
Again, history shows us that that's exactly what happens.
But that's not where that person is, right? That person thinks that, and they bought into the idea that if you over there are doing better, somehow I'm not as good. It's sad. It's very sad. It's selfish. It is. I used to live my life that way.
We have some, I'm going to say this right before I reset the program, so I'm going to lay this Molotov cocktail in the room and watch it burn before I reset the program. But we have a lot of that, I hate to say, in our own party. There is a lot of that if I'm succeeding, and this is the one time I am going to use myself as an example, because if it was any other type of organization, when I had to fight, claw, scratch, beg, show up 1,000 different places that I was not welcome to get anybody in this party to give me 30 seconds or give me a fair hearing. because I wasn't trusted immediately. And if it was any other kind of organization, the United Way, the JCs, the Red Cross, you name it, and I walked into a meeting and said I wanted to volunteer, I would have been given more work than I would have known what to do with. And there is way too much of a mentality, unfortunately. And of course, it's not ubiquitous. It's not every single person in our party, but there is a section of it that if I'm succeeding, if you are succeeding, then I must be failing, or they're taking something from me to succeed, when in fact, if I succeed, we all do. And if you succeed, we all do. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm not climbing on your back to get up higher. I want you to climb up the ladder with me. And we do entirely too much of that in our own party, unfortunately. And it holds people, again, it's the battle probably between what are labeled as the centrists or the corporatists versus the progressives. And I'm going to ask you about that in just a second. 6:03 Eastern time here in the United States, in the my humble second bedroom here in the Lehigh Valley, part of the Saucon Valley part of Lehigh Valley. I got that backward. Let me fix that. Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In these United States, on this planet Earth, the only one we have, third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system. We are live here for the Kennedy Effect on October 10, 2021. Our guest is Dwayne Heisler, wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, 90 plus places where the program has been shared. And that's just by me directly. I don't know how many other places the lot of you have shared this program this evening. Please feel free to do so, by the way. We have no advertisers. I do not own anything. This is not a money-making operation. Darn it. But it isn't. Share this program with your friends, families. If you have groups that you are in that I am not, and sometimes it seems like I'm a member of every group, and I'm actually happy to be a member of all those groups. But if you are part of a group that I am not, share it there as well. It is about getting the word out. It is about education, information, science, history, data, facts, the truth. Wherever you are on Facebook, stay where you are. You can enjoy the program in the background if you're getting the kids ready for school on Monday, having dinner, whatever it is that you might be doing. Stay there, enjoy. We appreciate you, every single one of you. However, if you would like to come to the home group Facebook page for the program, that other side of information, you can enter your questions, comments. I will see you there in the chat. I will say hello to you and all of that fun stuff. Hot101.net, our main website, the Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can also tell Alexa to play Hot101.net and TCB, the Cultured Professionally, which you can find on Facebook and their global internet radio outlet, WTCP. Dwayne, what does progressive mean to you?
Wow, that's a really good question. You know, I am the chair of the Progressive Caucus. I should be able to just rattle that off. I guess it means a lot to me. And so it kind of, I don't think I can fully answer that until I address what you said about the labels between centrists and progressives, right? So let me just say that I understand what you're talking about. I kind of had a different experience when I joined the Democratic Party in a big way. You know, I've been a Democrat forever, but when I actually heard about state committee, I found out that you actually didn't need to be a member of state committee to actually participate with it. And so I started going to the meetings, and before I knew it, I was in charge of DemFest, and, you know, with several counties coming together through the North Central Caucus. And I was doing this event, and it was addressing a need for rural counties that said, hey, the candidates never come to us. They never pay attention to us, you know, all this whining and crying. And I'm like, well, give them a reason. Like, if we have a big event, then they're going to have to come to us, make them come to us. And so we got together all these different counties, had a big event at Knoebels. And then sure enough, the candidates came and they did these things. But there were people there that had tried to do it and just didn't quite organize it in such a way that it became something. And in fact, the group, the North Central Caucus, was ready to give up on it. They're like, well, it's just not doable. We don't get volunteers. No one comes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I live right near Knoebels. I can do this. And there were people who said, oh, but you can't. No one can do it. I'm like, no, I can do this. I will do this. And it was, so the Chinese proverb that people who say that it can't be done should never stand in the way of those people doing it. I took that to heart. And I said, well, you can say I can do it. You can say I can't do it. I'm going to do it. And I just did it. And we had hundreds of people show up for that. It became very successful. In fact, I ended up raising money out of it instead of expending money. And in fact, I raised so much money for the North Central Caucus through doing these events that I paid back every starter fee they did for several years to get the thing going. So it actually was a net positive with the money, because I figured out a way not only to do it, but to do it at a profit, which was pretty remarkable. So you know what? I think that the big space between progressives and non-progressives is about the distance between two ears. The fact is that I believe that there are these core values that we all share, these shared values, these shared core values. But there are some people today that, for one reason or another, will fight against that because they have their own agendas and their own things. And for me, Jeff, it doesn't really matter who does it. I don't care. I'd rather not do DemFest and see it wildly more successful than I had ever done it. It's the idea of actually getting it done. And so if you do it, or if you do it, but someone needs to do it. And so I also think, and this is probably going to raise some eyebrows, that many of, non-progressives within the party, I think they're just a little bit afraid to be progressive. I think it's more fear motivated, quite honestly. It's usually about, there's two things. So when you look at state committee, one of the big divisions is if you ask people, why is there a Democratic state committee? You'll get half of the people saying, well, we're there to promote Democratic candidates and have Democratic candidates up and down the ballot and to elect Democrats and do things. If you ask a progressive the same question, they'll say something like, we're here to strive for, LGBTQ rights, or to do women's rights, or, it's always about the issues, and the other one's about electing Democrats. And sometimes those things come in conflict. Years ago, people were afraid to embrace marijuana, right? Because we'll lose every election. If you have a candidate that goes out and says, hey, I think we should smoke pot, you will lose elections. And so you can see the divisions that happen. And it's so funny to see those two, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. And what I do is I try to find the intersections where those things work, and maybe encourage or give some courage to those that are too afraid to go there. And for the other side to be like, hey, we don't have to burn the place down. We can work from within. I was a Bernie delegate, but I'm not one of those Bernie or bust. Let's burn down the whole democracy. And let's,
But when you burn the house down, all you are left with is a pile of ash and nowhere to live.
It doesn't really sound like an optimist to do that, right? So it's just not me.
Doesn't it make more sense to fix that? And I have this discussion with self-identified progressives all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The party's wrecked. It's all bought out. It's corporatist, and it's been that way since the Clinton era, and we need to tear it down or start our own new party. When you burn the house down, all you are left with is a pile of ash and nowhere to live. Or we can get inside the house and fix the house and make it a better place to live, maybe even make it a bigger place to live so that more people can fit inside of it. It seems to me that the simple, and it might even be an oversimplified definition of progressivism, is our own history. We had a democratic socialist president in this country. He was so damn popular, he got elected 4 times. And Republicans had to change the Constitution to make sure it never happened again. Progressivism is the New Deal. Everybody, folks run around with their hair on fire. It's probably a bad pun, but they run around with their hair on fire about the Green New Deal. We've already done that. We did it before. It was progressive policies. It was Franklin Roosevelt who saved the Midwest from the Dust Bowl using environmental science. We've done this before. Progressivism is nothing other than what we've already done. Isn't it really only, I say, the, kind of maybe not the best choice of words, but isn't really progressivism, when you boil it down, it's the history of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I have to say that that's what makes this moment right now, Jeff, so exciting, because the legislation that's in front of us between the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill is, well, there hasn't been anything like this since the New Deal. I mean, there's that much on the table. I mean, when you talk about affordable housing, clean air and waters, even small business access to credit and investment in markets, paid family and medical leave, the ACA expansion to cover the gap in Medicaid, dental and vision on Medicare, like just the child tax credit, the universal pre-K, the tuition-free community college upgrades to VA facilities. I mean, it's and also healthcare, like, you know, long-term care for seniors and people with disabilities. I mean, the investments that are there will dramatically change, fundamentally change where our country is heading, and it is incredibly exciting. I mean, and
to go back to something that you mentioned at the top, there's $1.5 billion, just $1.5 billion. Now, listen, if somebody walked up to me with an envelope and handed me $1.5 billion, I would gladly take it. But in the overall scope of the federal budget, hell, as a percentage of the military budget, that's a drop in the bucket. There's $1.5 billion. There's $1.5 billion in there to prop up local, small, non-centralized, non-nationwide, non-conglomerate newspapers.
I used to do a lot of work in the newspaper industry. I worked a lot with Thompson Group newspapers and newspaper insurance companies. I owned a debt collection company of all things for quite a number of years, 20 years, 25 years. I don't know, who knows anymore. 25 years. Yeah, 25 years. I owned a debt collection company. Another 5, I worked for another one. We did a lot of newspaper work. But yeah, I mean, these investments in us, investments in ourselves are just incredible. And even the infrastructure side, like just looking at the rail that's proposed, what that's going to do for Eastern Pennsylvania, getting Scranton hooked up to New York, getting Allentown, Easton, and Bethlehem hooked up into that rail, looking at Reading and connecting
both metropolitan areas.
Yes, to Philadelphia and
to New York, Northeast New Jersey. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we're all driving there anyway, by the way. Most of us are driving there, by the way. We're not all working. The majority of folks who live in the Lehigh Valley are not working here. We're going somewhere else, and it's usually either south or east.
Yeah, that's right. And so, I mean, that's incredibly exciting that we might be able to join the rest of the developed world and actually have some high-speed rail. Man, I was on the bullet train in 1984 in Tokyo, all right? Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah, we performed in Japan, like at Tokyo Disneyland, Yokota Airport. We took the bullet train around there to get to Kyoto. I mean, we still don't have that. That was like in the mid-'80s. It's shameful. It's just ridiculous. Like, to think about how that's held up. Years ago, there was a proposal in Florida kind of to link Disney with like with the beaches on either side. And yeah, those Republicans just shot that the hell down.
Daytona to Daytona.
There was a line. Yep.
And the high-speed line that's supposed to connect the major cities of California, at least, is still progressing, thank goodness, slowly, but at least still an actual project. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool to spend a few days at Disney, jump on the train, head to the beach, like, you know, or the other way around? Like, it's just, I don't know. We can have these good things. The rest of the world has a lot of these pieces. It has been done before. We've seen these things done over and over again. I mean, you know, we're the only country in the world where people file bankruptcy because of medical issues.
Quite literally the only country.
We are. Yes. I mean, I was in ACA International. I was the chair of their education department, doing all the training, and people in Europe and Australia, they were amazed that our economy, like that we did that to our citizens, that we didn't guarantee some kind of health care, and that people would actually file bankruptcy because of medical debt. I was interviewed once by the Oprah Winfrey Show. This is a while back. It was when Bill Clinton was in office, actually. And they said to me, Dwayne, during this time of incredible prosperity, we have a question for you. Why is it that there's a record number of bankruptcy filings? And I said, well, you know, it's one of these 4 reasons, because there's 4 reasons why people file bankruptcy. I'm not going to go into that, but it's one of these 4 things. And they said, well, that's interesting, but our show's actually on how credit card companies are sending out like credit cards to people who can't afford them, and then they end up running up the bills and they file bankruptcy. I said, well, that's really interesting, but the number 1 cause of bankruptcy is not credit cards or banks and financial, it's actually medical debt. And they were like, oh, well, that's very interesting. And then that was it. I wasn't on the show, right? That's not what they wanted to hear. Whether it was truthful or not, that's not what they wanted to hear. But even back then, it was medical debt.
That's only just one of several sectors of our society that we have made for profit.
Oh, yeah.
We've even forced the post office to be for profit, even though it was never meant to be that way. And by the way, the post office is mentioned directly in the Constitution. Right wingers who love and like to wrap yourself in the Constitution, the post office is in there. We've made education, period, now K through 12. We've made a for-profit industry, especially in the Commonwealth, especially here. We've made higher education for profit. We've made healthcare for profit. We've made electrical power, water systems for profit. We're privatizing roads. It's a libertarian fantasy.
I'll tell you what, it is so amazing.
No other OECD country on earth does what we do. None, period. None. Even though Hungary itself has fallen into full-blown fascist dictatorship, you can still get health care.
You know, this is the thing. Like when we talk about healthcare, it always seems to be about who owns it, who manages it, who buys it, who funds it. Like we can't afford to do it. It's always about those things instead of what kind of healthcare does our community need? And this consolidation,
even just deserve as a human existence, as a human right.
The corporate consolidation of healthcare is really like tied very closely to the decline of healthcare. You know, the fact of the matter is that these corporations come in, these large for-profit and not-for-profit. There's studies that show even the not-for-profits are just as bad. They come in, they set up these kind of motherships, almost like this kind of like this corporate centered healthcare where they have one facility that they invest in. And then in these other facilities in small towns and rural areas, they take away things like pediatric care, and they take away mental health services, and they dial back women's services. They just take away all of these things so that you have to drive hours to go to wherever, to the mothership, like to the corporate center of these things to get your health care. It just keeps on declining because that's the most profitable way of doing it. You know, they'll take away all kinds of maternity stuff. So if you want to have a baby, you're going to have to get in your car and get there. And then what happens is, you know, they buy up these things. Look at all the hospitals which have closed, you know, like, you know, what happens to the person in downtown Sunbury? That hospital was there for over 100 years. It was shut down, right? Because of profit, right? But yet it was there for all that time. And then the company who actually bought it and bought 2 for 1, invested in one, didn't even put up a sign at the other one, right? They drill it into the ground. Then they say they create these self-fulfilling prophecies by taking away the things that the hospital was doing, then say no one comes to it, and they shut it down. And this past year, they made $1 billion. They're building hospitals in China, and they're building hospitals in Ireland and in Italy. But they closed the Sunbury Hospital because they can't afford it. It's disgusting. And it is not the kind of healthcare that we need. It's not the kind of healthcare we deserve. And we can have better. And we should have better. And I believe one day we will have better.
So what is a certain section, group? Media recently, especially with the negotiations in DC regarding the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation bill, even HR 1, the For the People Act, the PRO Act, media has loved to play up this civil war that's happening inside the Democratic Party. When 6 House members can stop these several pieces of legislation and 2 senators, when it's 48-2, that doesn't sound like a civil war to me.
Oh.
That sounds like a couple of rogue members who are looking to either line their pockets or who are lining their pockets by the folks that own them and who oppose these policy positions. I happen to believe it's sheer, you know, I was talking before you got here a little bit about the circle of life, so to speak. And, you know, the Clinton faction of the party, and I don't think that's exactly a wrong way to put it. but the Clinton wing of the party is just by nature dying off or retiring or losing their grip on the party. But there's still enough of them there to halt these certain things. It's not a problem solvers caucus, it's a problem making caucus. Why does this, you are way smarter than me. I'm just the guy, I'm just the dummy with the microphone in front of me. If you and I can see this, if you and I can see that progressive policies, so-called progressive policies, I'm not even sure that the label's even worth, the stigma that comes with it. We're talking just about the historical roots of the Democratic Party. But that said, if you and I can see that what we are trying to do is return the Democratic Party to its roots, a party that actually did care about the 99%, and there's the smaller segment within our own party that's fighting it, what do we know that they are missing? Or is it really just as simple as the fact that they're making a hell of a lot of money off the way things are now?
So, Jeff, we can't let all the Republicans off the hook in this discussion. Yeah, there's 2 Democratic senators, but there's like 50 Republicans too, right? So there's that.
That's the thing, though. They're always in lockstep. They're the brown shirts. They're unanimous.
Well, they are.
Even if we took the argument, or not the argument, we're not arguing. Even if we had the discussion and we took it outside of what's happening in DC now, we see it within our own Commonwealth. There's a section. What are they missing that you and I agree on?
So the fact is that the number one thing they want to get is elected. And at the end of the day, some of them are going to have to come over, or they're going to lose their elections.
Because we know that these policies poll extremely well.
Exactly. And so it's just a matter of time, really. And I see them coming on board. I'm optimistic about these things passing. And so I am less concerned. Of course, I'm outraged by our 2 senators and the handful of House members that are doing what it is that they're doing. But what's even more outrageous is the hypocrisy that we have in the Senate and the hypocrisy that we have in the House, but really the Senate. I could care less about Senate traditions. I care about saving our democracy. And I would hope that there's at least 2 or 3 Republicans that care the same way. And I suspect that there are. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to happen, right? And the reason that I believe that is going back to the idea when we talked about the definition of progressive is some of our shared values, to me, it just seems like all of us, on some level or another, believe that we should have the healthcare that we need. That's like a shared value. I don't care if you're a DNR, an independent, or whatever the hell, it doesn't matter. I believe like that deep down inside that we believe that if you work hard, this is like an American value, that you should be paid enough to live on. Like somewhere in all of that stuff, there should be that. Right, that happens. And to me, some of the behavior by our opposition, by the Republican Party, is just the most un-American thing I have ever seen.
Then why do you think, because you live in a rural area, you work extensively in rural areas, if folks were to, I wish I knew, you don't need to watch me dig through my files to find the map. If you look at the red and blue by county map from the 2020 election, President Biden won what I've coined the phrase of the blue wall along the Delaware River, from Lackawanna south all the way down to the Delaware state border, Erie, Center, Dauphin. I think I got everybody. I might be missing somebody.
Monroe.
But Monroe. Well, that's when we follow the river down. We go Lackawanna to Monroe, over to Pike to Monroe, and all the way down in Northampton, Lehigh, Bucks, and Montgomery, Philadelphia, and Delaware counties. But what are the folks in these deeply red areas, these much less populated areas, but yet we're somehow gerrymandered into such a that very few people represent large swaths of land? What are they missing? What are they not getting? Not understanding? Again, that you and I can agree on. What are they missing? I assume I assume a Republican voter wants to go see a doctor. I assume they want to do crazy, wild things like, eat and breathe and drink the water and go to a school that's not crumbling around them, or that the lead paint has been removed or the asbestos has been removed, or heaven forbid, actually, build a brand new school or something crazy like a park, or, that the sewer system doesn't flood out their basement every time it rains. What are they missing? Literally missing that we seem to understand. If they have this shared values, if these are all shared values, why don't they share the values?
Well, because let's see, what do you think is the number one determining fact for how someone who is a newly registered voter, like who just turned 18 and is registering, what is the most important thing? Like, what determines what party they join?
It is usually their parents.
Correct.
Family tradition, so to speak.
Why is that?
Because that's all they hear generally.
That's right. And so that is part of the answer. The fact of the matter is that most people, but no one's born with a D or an R carved in their head. We may think that that's the case, but it's not. So most people,
I came out of the womb this way.
What they hear, and what that means is that most people are, on some degree, persuadable. You have the folks over here that if they hear the progressive thing all the time, they'll be like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. But then you say the other side and you say they hear those things like, oh, that makes a lot of sense too. But you know what? You have a good point here. Oh, but you have a good point there. And you know what determines like where they stand? It's whatever they heard last or whatever they hear the most of, right? And so when messages are repeatable, and we can go through all the narratives in rural Pennsylvania or rural America about what these repeatable messages are, such as government is the problem and they're all alike. And, these kind of things like my vote doesn't count. This is the average narrative that's out there in rural areas in our country. That's they're getting fed a steady diet of that. That's where that is. And so we have to be very careful as progressives when we feed into those narratives, because those narratives are destructive. We all know, you and I know, that when people come out and vote for change, we get it. When we fight, we win. We know that because we've seen that in our lives. But the person who's in those rural areas that hear all those other messages, it's just like another world for them, just a completely another world. They have completely bought into those things. And the only way we break them out of it is through using the proper messages. In other words, if your message is not repeatable, it is not a good message. If it's too complicated, it's not good. And it's easier to throw hate around it's so much easier to tear something down than to build it up. And so by default, we have a harder time of actually getting that across there. So I would say that, and I've seen it also, like when we do voter registration, like I've seen voter registration for the same college, like that has multiple locations. Like I'm happy to do it like in Wilkes-Barre, but I'll be damned if I do it in Berwick, because we're registering Republicans. When we do it through the same university, the same kids, we're actually registering Republicans to do it, right? So what's the difference, right? What's the difference? It's not the school they go to. They go to the same school, right? It's what their parents are telling them, and it's with the messaging that they're hearing. And so that actually can be a source of hope or inspiration. Now we know what we need to do.
6:30 Eastern Time. The Kennedy Effect is with you and live for October 10, 2021. We expect to be focusing on local races on the 17th and 24th, taking you into Halloween. Still not sure I'm going to be with you on Halloween. I might dress up and go out for candy because I like candy, but we'll see how that goes. Wherever you are on Facebook, That Other Side of Information is a home group Facebook page. We've had a decent number of folks in there tonight. Come on over, talk to us, put a question in there, put a comment in there. Let me say hello to you. Hot101.net is the main website. Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, the TuneIn Radio app for any phone on the planet. And you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. TCP, the culture professional from Lancaster. And our phone line continues to be open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Dwayne, when you talk about the history or the getting that message drilled into you, I do think that's an inherent, I really want to choose the right word. it's inherent to progressive policies that it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. Medicare for All does, Fight for 15 does, things like that. But there are whys to these things that just don't fit on a bumper sticker. So let me ask you kind of the same question, but perhaps from a different angle. The deep red voter in either the more rural areas of Pennsylvania or Idaho or Wyoming or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you pick up a spot. If so much of that is family history, and the last thing that you heard, because let's remember, folks, there's about 1,500 plus fully right-wing hate radio stations across the country, about 500 that are either progressive or at least broadcast one progressive program per day. It's one of the reasons we started this program, and we wanted to be live and we wanted to be interactive with you, is that if you had a problem with something I said, you could call me on it and we could have a discussion. We're some of the only live progressive media in the entire Commonwealth, if not the only. So if it's about what your parents did or what you heard, I didn't finish that thought. And Fox News, by the way, is free on every cable system in the country. There are still cable systems that make you pay extra for CNN and MSNBC. And of course, I guarantee you that CNN and MSNBC do not have direct corporate sponsorship like One America News from AT&T. It's why I'll be leaving AT&T. That said, even if the messaging isn't there, Dwayne, or it's not working, if you're a farmer in Center County or Tioga or Northumberland or Montour, any one of 55-ish counties in the state, or again anywhere across the country, maybe in rural Missouri, if the message isn't getting through, when does life get through? When the pipeline company tells the farmer, we're going to put this under your land, it's not going to affect you in any way, shape, or form, but we're going to pay you a rights fee. And then the leakage, the fracking water, the destruction of the topsoil bankrupts your farm. That's not a progressive or a conservative policy. That's life. When you have a nagging cough and you can't afford to do anything about it because you literally can't afford to go see the doctor, that's life. And it's very, very obvious. Or even one more, when you send the kids to school and the wealthy family down the street is doing cyber charter or even a private school, and you go to the public school and there's 40 kids in the classroom, that's life. That's not even right or left. But if you pay any attention whatsoever, you know that it's the progressive side of things, the big D Democratic Party side of things, that's actually trying to address those things. While the Republican corporation feeds you what's good for trillionaires is good for you, be afraid of those brown people, and I could do probably 100 other different things. How does the it almost sounds like an accusatory question, like I'm yelling at you. I'm not. You live there. I should probably back off a sec. But how do the folks not see what's happening in their own lives? When I speak to a self-identified Republican or conservative, because by the way, there's nothing conservative left about the Republican corporation. Nothing. They are not even a functioning political party. They're a corporation at this point. And I tell them that your tax burden has increased. It's increased in real dollars. It's increased as a percentage of your income since 1980, period. It has. It's a fact. Not just inflation, your actual tax burden has gone up. And why has it gone up? Because governments still need to be funded. And since the people at the top aren't paying anything, it's coming from you. How do folks not see that? Even if they see Democratic, the D in parenthesis at the end of a candidate's name on a ballot, how do they not realize what's happening to them on a day-to-day basis?
So there's a few things to unpack there. Just a
I'm
few.
really good at packing really big pieces of luggage.
Yeah, so you started off with the farmer and
Well,
that.
as an example,
Well, yeah, I know, but you know what? I've worked on so many rural campaigns, and it always seems like we're trying to figure out how to win the farmer's vote. You know what? I'd rather win like the whole town of Bloomsburg than the 5 or 6 farmers who are on the outskirts, to be quite frank. Doesn't mean I don't care about the family farm, but what it means, like, it's almost like a mythological, like you could win every farmer and lose the election. Corporate farming is really there now. So,
we could say the same thing about the pipe fitters. They're scared to death that there's no place for them in a green economy. It seems to me if you can weld a gas pipeline, you can weld a wind turbine.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to get to is like economies of scale and winning elections and actually like approaching people. And this constant insistence of trying to sell to the corn farmer like your policies is just like absurd. The people in rural communities and students are not going to grab that. It's just kind of like you're barking up the wrong tree quite a bit there. But anyway, that aside, there were some things that you mentioned that talked about basically the difference between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality and approaching things kind of different ways there. But where you landed was actually on the whole thing that, which, I said one thing about like going to state committee and asking people what is state committee about? Like some will say it's to elect Democrats and others will say it's to fight for these values, right? The other thing that you can do is you can walk around and say, why don't people just vote for their own value, like their own self-interest? Like everyone goes, and we all scratch our heads and say, yeah, like, can't they see? And blah, blah. And we continue to have those conversations. And that's the exact opposite of meeting people where they are. We're like asking them to understand something else. And it's not really digging into where they are. There's a reason why they believe what they believe. And it shouldn't be about not seeing the other side because they haven't. It's like going to the same place over and over again, trying to find your car keys. You already determined they're not there. What the hell? Look where they're not, right? And so we're asking the wrong question. We're actually kind of not digging into what can affect the change, just expecting it to happen on its surface. And this is the same thing that progressives do over and over again. They're always giving out facts and figures. If facts and figures meant anything, especially in today's world, where it doesn't seem like we need to have a fact about anything, we wouldn't have to have the struggles that we have. Right? Like, because it's fact. Well, all the things you said are fact, but that doesn't matter. What matters is where people are and the messaging that they're receiving and how they're responding to it. It's that simple.
Well, then let me take responsibility for what might have been a poorly worded or too long of a question. There's nothing in what you just said that I disagree with. When the policies enacted by Republicans upon people, because they don't enact policies for anyone except a very tiny slice. When those policies, listen, I think there's a whole section of the population that gets exactly the damn government they voted for, and you bloody well deserved it because you get it over. Because you
French philosopher that said that. I forget what it was.
You get it over and over and over again. It is the most popularized definition of insanity. But I guess my question is, and maybe the farmer is a bad example because again, you're right. There's not enough of them. It's a small number. But even if you wanted to take the pipe fitter or the welder or the carpenter or the small business person who thinks that when Walmart gets a double-digit billion-dollar tax cut is somehow good for them. When these policies are inflicted upon people throughout Pennsylvania, throughout the country, and their quality of life gets worse, it declines. Lifespans for the bottom 99 economic percent have gone down. How does that not click something when it's happening to you and you still don't see it? What are we missing?
Jeff, we have families right now that are, like, for ideological reasons, are not vaccinating their loved ones. You know, we kind of think that, well, gosh, you know, don't they want to take care of themselves? And we've heard the anecdotal, you know, over and over again, people that wish they would have taken the vaccine, people that wish they would have, you know, all in past
On their
tense.
deathbed.
Yeah, or they'll try this experimental shit that, you know, doesn't work, you know, when they could have been vaccinated and they're told after the fact. And so, yeah, so it doesn't surprise me, Jeff, you know, that we do see those things, and it doesn't surprise me at all that people don't seem to really care about their own self-interest when their own ego, like their own worldview is, I mean, to shake someone's worldview is pretty moving. And for some, it would require that, you know, that world. In other words, it's like a house of cards and it would all crumble. So it can't possibly be true. So I have to dig into this more. That's the response, because it can't possibly be true. You know, there's no way to do it. And we are so rooted into our class narratives and into our race narratives that that anything that threatens that house of cards is threatens that identity, and they're unable to move. They're just paralyzed by it. So the way that we have to engage, like those are the keys right there, right, is addressing race and addressing class, and do it through shared values. But it's not good enough to do that. You have to actually name the villain, why Republicans are doing what they're doing. And it's not just who they are, but why they're doing it, what they're doing, and how they're benefiting from it. So it's not a non sequitur. So it's just like, oh, well, you're just like calling them names. You know, it's really about what they're doing, and then show them some hope. Hope is the great thing, right? That can actually move things, and your belief and examples that when we come together, we can actually get shit done, you know, and it can move. And so you need all three of those. You have to, you know, too many times progressives come forward and they tell you how the house is burning down, right? They're like, hey, I have a ticket to the Titanic, get on board the, you know, and you name it. It's like our education system's falling apart. Women are going to have no rights. You have like our LGBTQ, you know, whatever it is, the environment, the planet's burning down. And then we ask them to join us. Like, we're telling them that we have a trip on the Titanic. They know how the story ends. Who the hell wants to get on board, right? Instead of actually talking about the things, those shared values where we can make a connection, and then explain how there are those that are, you know, going against those things for their own reasons. That's either to establish power or for money or to get reelected, you know, whatever those things are. And then but the good news is that when you and I come together and our neighbors, we can actually do that, because we can have those things. We can do those things. We can accomplish those things.
Is there a way to bind together the idea and arguably ideal that, you know, what's become an all too oft used phrase, I'm creating words again. Where's that coming from? The all too oft used phrase of motivated self-interest. When 99% of the folks do it, it's not really motivated self-interest anymore, is it? Because we're really not in a 90-10. I happen to despise when certain economic data is presented in a 90-10 or an 80-20 type fashion. Really 1% and 99. The two richest people in the country have as much wealth as the bottom 40%. The three richest have as much wealth as the bottom 60%. The richest 400 people on the planet have as much wealth as the bottom 4 billion. So really motivated. Can we almost, you know, when Reagan says when Thatcher and Reagan say we're not a society, we're not a community, we're a group of rugged individuals. When there's 100 of us in the room and what's good for 99 of us, it's not really rugged individualism anymore, is it?
So one thing that gives me hope, Jeff, you've been talking a lot about history too, right? And there's a wonderful trainer, and in a way kind of a mentor of mine too. Like she's just amazing. Her name's Penn Garvin. She does a lot of work with the Hub. And one thing she talks about, Jeff, is
I have been told to invite her here repeatedly.
oh,
I may have to do that,
yeah, she's very
especially
wise.
when it comes to speaking to rural voters, because I know she works on that a lot.
Yes, she does. One of the things she talks about is how we are the current iteration of the struggle that has been going on since forever. You know, we're just the people doing it now. And it may sound like we've never had these kind of disparities, you know, like to the extreme that we have. And I guess it's, you know, there's some ways of looking at that. Of course, it was a different world too, right? And your whole world was this. And so maybe that was there, right? In some way. But it can be kind of uplifting that we're the people now that are carrying this. Like it's our turn to be here to do this. And here's the fact of the matter is there's nothing that you can do or that I can do that's going to fix everything and we can go home and say, okay, that's now done. You know, and so this is
it's a more perfect union.
Yeah.
In search of a more perfect union.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at you know, I told you I was a Bernie delegate. You know, what Bernie Sanders has been saying for decades and been called crazy for saying is now considered center for half of the country, over half of the country, right? That's why they elected Biden. They elected Biden to build back better. That's his program. And it's the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill. That's what he was elected to do. That's what the American people set him up to do. And so
how he was going to pay for it, by the way. Even 74% of Republicans think that taxes on the rich need to be dramatically increased. Not just increased, but dramatically increased.
So in our time, we have seen a senator who was ridiculed for all of those ideas for decades. Now we're at the point of possibly passing those two things in our country. That's incredible, Jeff. That's really remarkable. And we've really come a long way. And that meant that the parties shifted that way too, right? Like we're on the verge of maybe joining the rest of the developed world with looking after our own people. That's incredible. That's remarkable. That is uplifting. And we are a part of that. And dare I say, just for something as simple, I mean, relatively speaking, something as simple, we're actually working toward, efforting toward joining the rest of the OECD, the quote unquote first world nations, for doing something as relatively simple a concept as taking care of our own people. I know, right? It's crazy. It's a mad world, Jeff. It's a mad world. But yeah, it is. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm one of those progressives that thinks that we should all have healthcare. Oh my God, can you believe how crazy he is? He thinks that everyone should deserve a good education. Oh my God, let's shut him down. He believes that we can rapidly move people from city to city on something called a train. How crazy is this guy? You know, that he thinks that if you work for a living, you should earn a living. That's insane, right? But yeah, and you know what we get called for believing in these beliefs. I mean, the radical, like, oh yeah, well, and the demon, like we're somehow like un-American, and if you don't like this country, you leave, and all that crap, all that shit that gets thrown at us.
I love when we get called socialist, Marx. Well, I love when we get called socialist, Marxist, communist, and fascist all at the same time. Because let me just take this spaghetti and throw it against the wall and see what the hell sticks. You've done everything but call us Martian at that point. You obviously realize, by the way, and look, that's a group of people you're never going to have a conversation with. They're literally within the persuadable universe written off. They're outside the bubble because they literally don't know that these two things don't match. And they're the direct opposite of fascist and Marxist and socialist. They're directly opposite of each other, by the way. I mean, that's just throwing words against the wall. On a similar vein, though, I was an elected official in the state of New Jersey. At the time that I was elected to the Phillipsburg, New Jersey School Board, which was one of what we called the Abbott districts. It was one of the 30 poorest, most special needed districts in the state. We received an inordinate amount of state and federal funding because we were poor. We're a poor town 2/3 of the almost 3/4 of the population was on some form of assistance. We had more Section 8 housing than anywhere in the county, actually almost anywhere than I think North Jersey, other than the northeastern, New York City suburbs and Trenton. I was the youngest elected official of the state of New Jersey at the time. I was 22 years old when I got elected.
Wow.
When I became elected, and I had a big mouth then too. Just by the way, folks, I had a big mouth then too. I just didn't have all this tech to yell at you every week. I automatically became a member of my municipal Democratic Committee, my county Democratic Committee, and the state Democratic Committee, simply by being an elected official. We don't have that in Pennsylvania. I happen to think that there's quite a gulf. I think it's improving a little bit, but there's a proper division. Not division, that's a bad choice of words. There's a river between the two banks of the party structure and our elected officials. Why do you think that is?
I think that most people don't understand how the party is structured. There's a lack of understanding, and I didn't know it either. I mean, when I got involved with a campaign, there was someone who, there was the mayor of Bloomsburg who was running for the state legislature, and I quickly found out that, I'm doing this work. We need to talk to the local Democratic Party. I'm kind of like, is there one? And I still get asked that question all the time. Like, where do I get a sign from? I mean, yeah. Okay, there is a Democratic Party in every single county in the state. And so people don't even know that. And it's because, Jeff, we're all busy with our lives. We don't live and breathe this stuff. We don't know the structures of it. And so I think that's a big part of it, that we don't understand the structure. And there are people who are mystified by state committee and what it does and what it doesn't do. And the party should be doing this. And that's the thing. One of the things I learned from unions, like, there are always members of unions that say the union should do this and the union should do that. That's called othering the union. The union is actually the members, right?
Right, exactly. So it's democracy in the workplace.
Democratic Party. If you're a Democrat and you're asking why the Democrats are doing that, you need to look inside a little bit. Like, what have you been doing? You're part of the party. So
I don't see.
You've been making phone calls. Have you been actually lifting up these things? What have you done to promote whatever it is you're questioning the party? It's like the othering. And so it's always something outside of ourselves, right? Like, then something within. If you think the problem is outside of yourself, that very thought is the problem.
Well, why? Well, first off, unions are I don't want to say nothing more because it somehow minimizes it, and that's not my intent in my word salad here, but they're democracy in the workplace, aren't they? They're democracy in the workplace. They're a voice.
I guess it could be described. I mean, there's a lot that unions do, but yeah, absolutely, it is their voice, and that's
probably the membership of voice inside the company that they're an employee of. It's a voice. It's a collective. It's a society. It's a community. It's democracy in the workplace. We voted for these working conditions. We voted against these working conditions. We want to work with management, and on a majority scale, that is what happens. Unions are willing to work with corporate ownership and management, not against them for the fun of it or the sake of it. But why do you think, maybe a more basic question, I want to drill down a tiny bit. If I was, tomorrow, or even you, I'm knighting you, look at me knighting you. If you were elected to your borough council, county council, state rep, state senator, why are you not automatically a voting member of the Pennsylvania State Democratic Party? Don't we have to bring together? I refer to, and look, our own party does it. I can be very highly critical of our own party. It's not always productive, sadly, but it is what I see, so I talk about what I see. There are some party elected officials around here who kind of treat us like the Thanksgiving China. They bring us out when they need us. Well, we need you to knock doors and make phone calls, and we need money, and we need mailers and postcards. Okay, election's over. We were great. Great job, everybody. And then they pack us up and they put us back again until they need us.
So that's a lack of understanding, really, because we elected them. Every 4
Oh,
years.
that's exactly my point. So why isn't my county executive a member of the Democratic State Committee? And why isn't his presence at our meetings not just welcomed, because it would be, but expected? If I went to a Democratic State Committee meeting in New Jersey, I easily mingled with the entire legislature. If the governor didn't show up, it was a scandal. Now, the fact that we had our meetings in Atlantic City helped. Let's just be blunt. That helps a little bit, but because people like to go to Atlantic City. So even if the governor all he did was drive down from Trenton, but that's not the point. If he didn't show up, he or she didn't show up, it was a scandal. We don't have that.
Well, we have some of it, Jeff, but we do have, because some of our elected officials are actually default members of state committee.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have like the DNC as well, and you have members who are in there. So you have some of it, but not to that degree. I don't know. I'm honestly, Jeff, I'm not as concerned about that. Like the fact is that the party itself, you get to every 4 years elect your member of state committee who is in your county, and that person is representing you and your county on a state level in the Democratic State Committee. And furthermore, in your county, if you're a registered Democrat, you can show up to every and all meetings in that county. And guess what? You get to elect who the chair is, who the vice chair is, who the treasurer is, who the secretary is. So you have it's completely open. You know, it's not like in the Republican Party where I think you need a secret handshake or some shit like that. Like, I don't know how that works, but you know,
I think you need a big enough bank account, to be honest.
So, and what was so surprising to me, Jeff, when I started that campaign working with the mayor in Bloomsburg, you know, regarding their run for the state legislature, was I didn't know how easy it was to get involved with the party. Oh my God, it's so easy. Like, it really is. Like, you just show up. And like, those meetings are open. If you're a registered Democrat, you can go to those. And that's how I started. And in fact, I remember someone saying to me, oh, well, you're only showing up because you're working on this campaign. And once that campaign is done, you're going to go away. And I just thought about, like, I don't know who you've been talking to lately, but that's not how I operate. And now I'm like, twice elected state committee person. I'm on the executive committee for the state party. I'm the chair of the Progressive Caucus. Like, a hell of a lot more than they've ever done, and all the work I've done in the committees and with DemFest and all the training work that I've done for the party, for their seminars, like all of that kind of stuff, like, and the advocacy work I've done, and the electoral work that I've done, like, and all of that is so I am not going to other the Democratic Party, and I'm not going to feed the narratives that do that as well. What I am here to say is that there's a lack of knowledge of how easy it is to get involved, and the fact that all of these party officials are one way or another elected, either directly every 4 years to state committee, or by you showing up at your county meetings and electing them to positions within the organization in leadership positions. And so in that state, it's like the heart of our democracy.
And that really is one of the great underreported, unknown, lack of proliferated facts about our party, is that you don't have to be an elected party official to show up at meetings. If you are, we have the Saucon Democrats here locally in the Saucon Valley, and we don't have a formal officer structure. Maybe the Bethlehem City Democrats would be a better example for what I'm trying to get into. But you don't need to be a ward person or precinct committee person or anything like that. If you're a registered Democrat, the door is open and you can go in and have your say. And it's one of the great underreported things about our party. And I've started going to state committee, and I think it's how you and I met, actually, because I'm a registered Democrat. And I have been my entire life. And I think that's really, I'm not a state committee member, not yet. But I go because it's my party, darn it. And because I have an opinion too. And I sure as hell have a big mouth, as we obviously know. But it's my party. And I'm concerned about how it operates.
I remember the chair of the North Central Caucus asking me at one point, and this is after I was running DemFest for them and I was involved in several committees. They were taking some votes and they said, he came up to me afterwards, he goes, Dwayne, I noticed that you didn't vote on any of this stuff. Why didn't you vote? I'm like, well, because I'm actually not a member of state committee. I am not a member of state committee. And he was surprised. And this is the takeaway from that is you do not need a title to show leadership.
Caller on the air, Randall. I have you in my caller ID. Holy heck. I have a caller in my caller ID. I think the computer's going to start smoking and sparking and things are going to blow up and I'm going to have a power outage. I have a repeat caller. You need to turn the background noise down, Randall. You're killing me.
Especially us progressives.
Well, welcome back to the program. What is your question or comment for Dwayne?
Yeah, it's serious for Dwayne. A couple of questions real quick, Dwayne. I've got a lifelong friend that I worked at early in one of my careers, but she worked her whole life there at Allen Institute. Roxanne Hogue. And she was president of her local for her union, and I think she was regional president. And just wonder if that name rings a bell at all.
Yeah, I didn't hear the name. What was it? Was it Roxanne, you said?
Roxanne Hogue.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Hoag.
Well, if you're looking her up, Randall, I know that for sure.
Anyway, she just retired from a Philadelphia area of your union.
Okay.
On the executive committee. And my second question is, do you know a good friend of mine here from Delaware County that's on state committee, Brett Barman?
Say that one more time, Randall.
The young man was 30 since on state committee.
Say the name again one more time. You're very, very muffled, sir.
Oh, how am I now?
A tiny bit better. Just get close to the microphone if you would be so kind.
Okay. The name of my friend is Brett Berman.
Oh, yes, I know Brett very well. Yes.
Good.
Yes, Brett was incredibly involved with the Progressive Caucus. I was kind of hopeful that maybe he would like to be the next chair of the Progressive Caucus. I did a lot of work with Brett. He also ran for office down there too, right?
He ran for state senator.
Yep, he ran for state senate. Yep.
To represent Delaware and Chester County areas.
Yep.
But he lost out in the primary.
Yeah, yep. In fact, I went down to an event, I think it was in Chester, and he was there. Was it Chester? Was it Westchester? I don't know, somewhere down there. It was a really cool community.
It would have been Westchester for that state district.
Okay, so it was in Westchester. I saw him at an event down there. But yeah, I've known Brett for a while, and I was happy to work with him. He did some great work. One of the things we do in the Progressive Caucus is we try to hold the state committee a little bit more accountable. When we have votes, the body will make votes, and we will have basically make statements about where the party stands on this or that. We as the Progressive Caucus, first of all, are the ones that a lot of times will put these votes forward. And then we'll make sure that when they pass, that they actually end up on our website and that we distribute them throughout our network. And because what sense does it make if we have these resolutions that we are sponsoring and then no one knows about them? And Brett was wonderful in making sure that and this is before I was even on the executive committee, making sure that the members of the executive committee knew that, make sure that the staff of the PA-DEMs, like that they were really taking these things and lifting them up. And Brett was relentless there and lifting all of that up. And he did some great work there.
Well, like I said, I voted for Delaware County. I've been a Democratic committee person for 43 years in the 3 communities I've lived here my life in Delaware County. And I voted for Brett to be nominated, endorsed by Delaware County Democratic Committee, but they went with the gentleman that won the primary over him.
What else you got?
Yeah.
What else you got, Randall?
I just want to say one thing about Brett real quick. I love the fact that he got a motion to pass by majority on the state Democratic Committee to condemn the Mariner East pipelines a number of years ago. And I've obviously been involved in many groups along the route in Westchester County and Delaware County. In fact, I had to leave my home of 22 years in Middletown Township, Delaware County, because I was living right in the blast zone, essentially next to when they were constructing Mariner East, and now they're constructing Mariner East too, right next to it. So yeah, he's a great progressive, and you are too, sir, by the way. So that's good. I probably overtalked my stay, Jeff.
No, you're good, brother. I appreciate the questioning. I appreciate the input. Let me ask you one quick question, Randall, before I leave you to free up the line. You said you've been a member, a PCP, member of your committee for 43 years. Dwayne and I were speaking before you called about how most Democrats do not know that they do not need to be an elected official, either an office holder or elected even party official, to attend their local party meetings, municipal, county, or even the state for that matter. How important is it? How easy is it for a non-elected Democrat to show up to these things and be a part? How important is that?
It's very important, because the more people that show up, number one, it shows that there is an interest. And the more people that show up give more and diverse opinions on subjects for committee discussions. Yeah, that's again, just like Dwayne said, Pennsylvania, I don't know any committee in Pennsylvania where the meetings are not open, whether it's local committee or county committee or state committee. And, the Republican committees, it's all done under the table. It's all done in secret, whether it's endorsements, whatever. Now, we have, the local committee endorses, and that's public. And then, obviously I'm a county committee member because I'm a local committee member.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all open for endorsements, and the votes, public records of who was endorsed, most of the time why they were endorsed, et cetera, et cetera.
Fair enough, Randall. Thanks for calling the program and being a part and being a loyal listener. I'm very appreciative of you, sir. I really do appreciate it.
All right, Jeff, have a good one, and Dwayne, you have a good one, sir. It was nice hearing from another fellow progressive Democrat.
Thank you so much for calling in, and please tell Brett I said hello.
I will do that, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Randall. Stay safe, okay? We are at 7:11 Eastern Time. I missed my reset. Anywhere you are on Facebook, That Other Side of Information is a home group Facebook page, hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, the main website, and you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. I got lost right in the middle of my reset. And TCP, of course, the cultured professional. The phone line, as you just heard, is open. 2 calls in a show. I might as well resign right now. And maybe that's why you're calling, because you want me to resign right now. 2 calls in one program. I don't even know what to do with myself. But the phone line remains open to speak to me and to Dwayne. 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. Dwayne, why did it take a pandemic to realize how important healthcare workers are?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's really sad for some. It did take a pandemic.
I mean, I'm not smarter than anybody else. I might know more about certain things than other folks, but I'm certainly not smarter and I'm not better. I've had several surgeries. I have 2 surgeries on my neck. I have more metal in my neck than I do bone at this point. And I received, I mean, not just good care, but caring care, like gentle care, emotional care, gentle care. The folks that were taking care of me gave a crap about me. They wanted to help me. They wanted to see me heal. Why did it take a pandemic for so many other folks to realize not just the importance even of what healthcare workers do, but how they do it, how emotionally invested they are in what they do?
Well, it makes me think of 2 things. I think, first of all, that for quite some time, for quite a number of years, a long time of years, like especially if you look at nurses directly, that a nurse has always been a trusted voice, right? Like if you go back decades, in fact, you might even hear quite a bit like, well, ask the nurse knows, like the nurse will know even more than the doctor does about this or that. It's a common narrative that you hear. And so in a way, Jeff, I think we have, at least in a small way, maybe have known that this profession is highly respected, that they know what they're talking about, that they're there to care for people. That I think that was part of it. Of course, when you're in a pandemic, that becomes a whole another thing. But I think in one way that we may have known it, or else it wouldn't have been a trusted voice, right? And that wouldn't be what we're talking about or what we're hearing. So I think that's part of it. But there's an incredible lack of knowledge, especially around like home health care and nursing homes. And I think part of that, like home health especially, well, both of them, it was astounding to me. I didn't know that there's many home health care workers that make like $11-12 an hour or less, right?
Yep.
I didn't know that. We all believe like when a family is coming to a decision to say what's happening with their loved one, and they decide that what is best for them is to stay in their home as long as possible. I think we would agree, like most of us would like to stay in our homes as long as possible, but we're going to need help to do that, right? And the struggle that a family goes through to do that, if we're lucky enough to have a family to do that, right? And then to realize that, well, there's not enough home health care workers and you're going to have to be put on a waiting list. And some people will wait forever on that list and they not end up in a nursing home. Like that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's not what the family had wanted. It's not what the first choice was. It's not where we thought they might get the best care. I mean, honestly, over half of all the COVID deaths in Pennsylvania happened in nursing homes, and that's because of short staffing. So the same problems we have in home care, we also have in nursing, and we also have in hospital. It's all about staffing, right? That's like the main thing. When you're trying to keep a facility clean, you need staff to do it, right? So and it was shocking to me that we value so little because of the way we fund it. We don't value home healthcare workers. The fact is that they make poverty wages, and that's just not a phrase. Let's see how well you do making $11 an hour. That's why they have multiple jobs. They don't have any insurance themselves. How can they keep others healthy when they can't even keep themselves healthy? We know how expensive healthcare is. They don't have vacation time.
I met a nurse Friday night. I work for a company that rents equipment into nursing homes, beds and mattresses and so on. And I met a nurse Friday night who was at the facility. She was one of the head nurses there. It was one of her 3 jobs.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I had someone putting groceries in the back of my car, and I was like, wow, thank you for doing this. And she goes, yeah, it's been really crowded in there. I'm really nervous about it. I said, yeah. She goes, well, my other job is in the ER room at the hospital. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, and here she is like bagging, not that there's not dignity in that work, but it is multiple jobs because they're not being paid well enough. They don't have vacation time. And if the person they're taking care of has to go to a hospital, well, they can't be billing the home healthcare worker at the same time they're doing the hospital. That person's now unemployed. They don't have a job. They don't have money coming in. Like, how can you live like that? And this is why people are leaving the profession.
At the risk of going off on a tangent, haven't we almost glorified the multiple job worker?
Oh,
Like, get your side hustle on. Oh, it's exciting. Oh, when you're bored and you're not working. I remember, you know, this commercial did not last long, and I have to assume that they must have got some polling backlash on it. There was the Uber commercial of the teacher who was literally leaving school, waving goodbye to the kids and so on, getting in his car and going on duty. And this is what I do for my side hustle. Like, it was cool and fun. And by the way, this is America. If you choose to do that, then God bless you. But the fact that you have to do it, just to make ends meet, it's fundamentally un-American.
when the largest employer in the state of Pennsylvania tries to tell their workers how they can get assistance to make ends meet, there's something wrong, right? Like, you know, we're subsidizing that. The taxpayers end up paying for that crap when we don't pay them well enough, right?
Insourcing the profits and outsourcing the costs.
It's corporate welfare is what
Correct.
it is.
Socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor is what Dr. King said.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. I would say that that the pandemic, you're right, and everyone has heard this by now if they've been tuned in any way, shape, or form. The pandemic has helped to expose the problems that we've had all along in healthcare about staffing, about low wages, about working in environments that aren't safe. You know, so many of the safety standards that, you know, that really need to be in place there, or just the idea of what corporate consolidation in healthcare has done to local community health and health outcomes, and you know, which is a big part of it. Your healthcare is a part of your health outcome. You know, has really kind of drilled that down. And I don't know, it's kind of frightening to me when I think about, like, when I hear that there aren't any beds left and that people are like in the hallways of our
Room
health
closets and maintenance closet.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, when people say, oh, we, you know, but even before that, I mean, I was in a car accident and I ended up going to a hospital and I was in the hallway and I was like, what is going on? It's like, well, we don't have a room for you. And there was all these beds stretched along this hallway. This is before the pandemic. And I said, what's going on? And they're like, oh, it's a Monday. Like, the culture was there in that top medical facility. It's one of the top ones in the state. And they were like, oh, that's just a Monday. That's how we operate. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I couldn't, it was just, now, I sound like the privileged white guy who expects a room, right? But at the same time, it was shocking to me that I was like, did a bomb go off? Is there an explosion? Is there a large fire? Did a hurricane come through? Was there a flood? Why do we not have enough beds? And they're telling me it's because it's a Monday.
I think one of the forgotten things about this pandemic, Dwayne, and please agree with me or disagree with me or inform me if there's something that I don't know. I love to learn things that I don't understand and don't know. But I think one of the forgotten policy decisions in this entire pandemic, the stay-at-home guidelines and recommendations and the what I actually don't think is a proper description of it, shutdown of the economy. The main reason for that was to protect the hospital systems of this country, because they are run on a profit motive. They're run on I grew up in warehousing. They're run on a just-in-time sort of profit motive. We only have just enough nurses for the people that we think we're ever going to have in the hospital. We don't have empty beds because empty beds aren't profitable. I remember a doctor that I see in the the health network that I am a part of. I probably shouldn't say them before they deny me care. Saying that the administrator of the big main hospital here, he's not a doctor, he's not a healthcare worker, he was a hotel executive. And they were having all brand new TVs installed in the hospital while she was reusing a mask for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We stayed at home to protect the hospital system because it couldn't absorb what was happening to the country. And now, for all the folks on the right who were apoplectic about the Affordable Care Act and how it was going to ration care and death panels, et cetera, we have 4 states where that's happening now, and they're all red states, where only the most serious of patients are being admitted. And if they don't think you need a ventilator, well, then go the hell home. If you die at home, oh well, we don't have space for you here. That's the rationing of healthcare?
Yeah. That's
What are we missing here?
No,
Or are we
I don't-
missing anything?
I don't think we're missing anything. That kind of just-in-time manufacturing was from like the 1970s, and wasn't that like Japanese automaking? I think it comes from like Toyota. I'm not sure, but it's. I think there was an American economist that was involved with that. I'm not sure, but but yeah, you can really see that playing out in our current healthcare structure. And all I have to do is ask this question, and I think it's terrifying. Like, what happens when there's a real emergency? I mean, a real one, and we see what happens. People die. That's what happens, That's what happens when you have a flood. That's what happens when you have a large fire, when you have an earthquake, when you have a natural disaster. We are not equipped. We can't handle it. We are unable to handle it. I don't want to really frighten people about that, but it just shows how important these structures are. And that my thought is we can't afford not to have a good healthcare system, right? And that's why these bills that we're talking about, and reinvesting in people, in infrastructure, in human infrastructure, in our own health, I think is important. I think that we should invest in seniors. I think we should invest in our parents and our grandparents. I think that we should invest in the people who are doing that kind of work. I think that that's critical. I hope that when I am older, that I'm lucky enough that I can have people advocating for me so that I can get the health care that I need, so that I can live my most fulfilling life that I can. There's so many people in home healthcare work that are helping people actually to be a part of this economy. There's many people who have some severe limitations, maybe some handicaps or things like that. They just need help to get up in the morning so they can go to work and dial in and do the work that they do, but they need that home healthcare worker to help them to get there, to be a functioning and a part of society, which is what's good, and so that's the reason that I do the work that I do, that I do the work, and I'm really glad that I make the decision to go with SEIU Healthcare because of the mission and how important that is to all of us. And we should all be lucky enough to have people advocating for the kind of healthcare that we need, every single one of us, because from the moment that we're born until the moment that we're put in the grave, we're going to have someone take care of us. We weren't on our own when we were first born, right? It's not possible. And when we're gone, and or when we are in years where we're going to need help, we're going to need that. It's going to affect all of us. There's not a family out there that's not affected by healthcare. Why can't we invest in each other?
Is that perhaps one of the aspects of the work that you do and that SEIU does, is not just again, I'm at the risk of sounding minimalist, not just the typical union work, the collective bargaining, the representing your members, but actually advocating on the healthcare front, of saying, wait a second, we believe that we know what's best here because we're the ones working in it.
Absolutely.
Let's get a better system. Let's just not strike and picket and monies and health benefits, and which is ironic for healthcare workers to have to negotiate for health benefits, but you not just walk outside and stamp and say we want more money per hour, but actually say, let's build a better system. Let's have a better system. Let's have a less expensive system. Let's cover everybody. I think most people understand what unions do, but isn't that maybe the part of what your union does that maybe people don't know? And can you tell us about it? Actually advocating for a better system.
I have a really good example. I've been talking a lot about home health care, but let me pivot to another sector, which would be our long-term care and looking at our nursing homes. Right now, the regulations in Pennsylvania, let's first set the stage right. The nursing homes in Pennsylvania, probably 60-70%, probably closer to 70% are for profit. Okay, so let's get our heads around that first. They're for profit.
And a majority paid for by Medicare, am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they're for profit.
So when you know, keep your damn government hands off my Medicare.
Yeah, these
Medicare pays for so much of that. Yeah.
Yeah, these private innovators are figuring out how to get our tax dollars, because it's really our tax dollars that they're going after. Medicare, Medicaid, you know, all of the things. So the regulations that currently exist in the state of Pennsylvania and in a lot of the country is that if you're in a nursing home, they are technically required to provide 2.7 hours of care in a 24-hour period. Let me repeat that. They're required to provide 2.7 hours of care in a 24-hour period. I don't want to demean anyone, but I wouldn't put my dog in a kennel to be taken care of for 2.7 hours out of a 24-hour period. Okay?
So are we talking about direct, when you're talking about care, are you talking about direct
so it's even
interaction?
Now, how they calculate it is they take the number of employees and the number of residents, and they do the math.
Just
So
do
it
math.
includes the gardener, the person who takes care of like security, the person who works the front desk. It's all of the things, right? And so what SEIU has been advocating for, and this is like decades ago, this should have been enacted, is 4.1 hours of care. Well, here's the news. During a pandemic, we made this insistence because of all the deaths that were there. And with staffing, once again, remember I said staffing is the
Right.
thing that you can see in all levels of healthcare. Thankfully, the Department of Health said, yeah, it's time for 4.1. And we had this big advocacy work that we were doing, and there was time for public comments, and we had thousands and thousands of people write in to the Department of Health that says, yes, we need to improve the quality of care to 4. Now they're writing the regulations, which can be a 2-year process. They're probably going to do it in 1 year, though. We have some guarantees that that's going to move that way, but there's going to be the industry. The long-term care industry is pushing back, saying, hey, we think that if you're pushing for this, that we're not going to be able to afford it, even though they grabbed all this money during the pandemic, right, and refused to spend it at bedside. There was a lot of push that was going on there. There were strikes that were threatened, all this kind of stuff. But it's a really good example, Jeff, of what you were saying. So this is an example of a union looking outward as opposed to looking inward. When they're doing the inward work, it's working in the facilities and with making sure that there are safety standards, that people have the training that they need. By the way, most of the home healthcare workers, you know how they get their training? From YouTube. There's no training either. Like, they don't know how to, you know, and they don't have the equipment that they need to lift people up and out. I mean, it's insane how bad it is. But anyway, so that's inward work, you know, working in the facilities and trying to make sure that that people have decent jobs, that they're, you know, earning a livable wage, that they have some benefits, that they also have safety standards that are being met and are in safe work conditions. But then looking outward, so working with legislators, working with local communities to kind of dig in and have public forums about the local healthcare and what's happening there. I don't think anyone should find out who's going to own their nursing home when it's already a done deal and it shows up in the paper the next day. That's bullshit. It's almost like if you have enough money, you can buy whatever hospital you want, whatever nursing home you want, and there's no transparency. Like, who's on the board of directors? What other facilities have you owned? How many have you shut down? How many have you bled dry to make a profit and then pumped it into something else? Like, I think I would like to know, living in my community, who's buying the local hospital before it's a done deal. I want to know what kind of healthcare they're going to bring into my community. There needs to be transparency. And the only way we get that is by looking outside of ourselves to the communities, to the local elected officials to try and hold these facilities accountable, and to our legislators, our elected officials, you know, to try and work out something where we can have some transparency in this whole process.
Well, dare I ask, even though I think the answer is quite obvious, but dare I ask, who would be against such what seem to be common sense measures?
Whoever wants to make the profit, right?
Well, let me ask it this way. I have said on this program many times, probably too many times, that within the health industry, and it is an industry, let's just be blunt, it's an industry. I am loath to even call it, or at a minimum, I'm reticent to call it a health care industry. But in the health industry, we know that every dollar of denied care is a profit dollar. We don't think you need X procedure. We're not covering this ER visit. Your copay at this doctor is, this one's 20, that one's 30, that one's 50. Oh, but that one's a specialist, so that one's 200. Oh, well, we don't really think you need that drug or that medicine or that treatment. So, oh, well. And the profit is actually built in by collecting the premiums and not spending of it, any of it. Are we dealing with the same thing when it deals with home health and nursing home health or elder care? Are we dealing with the same thing? The facilities take in the Medicare money. And again, folks, you need to know this is primarily, not exclusively, but primarily Medicare money, your tax money. So if we get X thousands of dollars per patient, but we don't really spend that because we don't staff up, we don't, you know, we get a cheaper bed, we get cheaper mattresses, we have a kind of okay HVAC system, but not a great one. We have one guy that mops the floors and sanitizes instead of the 6 that we probably need. Things like that. Are we talking about the same thing? Taking in, but not spending? Is that what we're looking at here as far as the profit margin?
So the fact is that healthcare is part of the market. And when the underpinnings of that are not good, then that affects everything. And so, and you see this even more so with corporate, you know, healthcare, with consolidation in corporate healthcare. And so what you end up is with a scenario where, I don't know, there might be a magic number where, you know, one company in a region might have 70% of the healthcare that's there, right? Well, when you do that, then they can tend to like charge whatever they want. And they can, I mean, have you ever gone to your doctor or to a local specialist and they referred you out of network? Or they told you, maybe you might want to shop around for this x-ray or ultrasound because you might be able to find a cheaper place to do it. Like, the market forces are not, you know, you're going to go wherever your doctor tells you to go, wherever, you know, like in network, and they steer you and they move you in this direction. And, you know, it's the same way with the workers. Like, if you lived in Pittsburgh and you worked at a certain facility, you know, years ago, if we dial back the clock, even just 10, 15 years ago, and you didn't like this hospital, where, you know what, you can leave that one and go to another one. But now they're owned by the same company. So either you have to change professions or you need to pack your bags and move. You can no longer do that there because you've quit this organization or you just got fired or whatever it is. You no longer have a job in healthcare in the city of Pittsburgh, right? Because it's owned by one company. Like, so
how many big healthcare systems are we talking about in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? Because if I just rack my brain, I can probably name, could maybe get to 10. And I would think that might be all of them.
I don't know. I honestly don't know that. I don't like to talk about things I don't know. I know some of the bigger players that I end up bumping into, and I know some of the people I bump into in Northeast PA as well, NEPA. But I don't really know what they are. But what I can tell you is that they're getting fewer and fewer. They're being gobbled up.
Right.
You know, the local providers are just, being swept up. And when that happens, then you end up with, like I said before, with these facilities where they're investing at these hubs. It's like hub healthcare, where there's a hub and then everything around it tends to like go away or yeah. In fact, one of the large corporate healthcare providers, one of the members of the board of directors said that they would like to see their organization become the Amazon of healthcare.
I would argue we already have a few of those.
That sounds great, right? I know I want my healthcare from the Amazon of healthcare, don't you? Like, put me on the conveyor belt, yeah, that's how I want my healthcare. Oh,
and
my
then the
God.
CEO of that healthcare company can go to space next. I would already argue that we already have a couple Amazons of healthcare in the Commonwealth. UPMC jumps to mind. So what does SEIU do, either directly or indirectly, to try to better this system? Is it a political style information campaign of saying, here's how Medicare for All would work for you, or here's how a decentralization of facilities would help you, or in combination with the fact that, oh, by the way, your nurse is making $12 an hour. We kind of think, she deserves double that, or he deserves double that, and that there needs to be more of them. Is it largely informational? Is it inside the system, outside the system, all of the above, lobbying efforts, picketing, marching, all of the above?
Well, obviously we're centered on our members. Like, it's all about our members and whatever we can do collectively to, help our members in the workplace and outside the workplace. And so that's our primary goal, which means that we have to be active politically. We have to be active in our communities. Our members don't work in a bubble. Society doesn't work in a bubble. Healthcare isn't in a bubble. And so we have to have all of those components kind of working together. And we are always searching for allies that we can work together with, in the big scheme of things, in the big picture of things, to help advance all of us forward. So I think, Jeff, it's a combination of things, but we don't want to forget that, without our members, we're not a union. It's really about our members. And so everything is about the member experience and how can we lift up their voices. And so the best people to advocate is not me. I'm not the healthcare worker. It's actually the person who is, making the food or cleaning the room or taking the blood pressure, taking your blood pressure, or dealing with a pandemic and trying to, to do their part to keep us all healthy and keep us all alive. Those are the people that need to be in front of the legislators and in front of the decision makers, in front of the local groups to really kind of speak up and speak out and make the case for those things. And so one of the main things I do is when I'm doing work in the community or I'm doing back is to check back with our members and to get them, let them know that there's an opportunity to be in front of this person or that person, or to have their voice lifted so that we can make a difference. So it's a really integrated kind of approach. We are very active politically, which means that we also do electoral work too. We put up our walls and, some will work with, with the actual working with parties, individuals and parties and digging in on with candidates, and others will be working with progressive organizations, having, and honestly, SEIU tends to punch a little bit heavier than its weight. And so does SEIU healthcare as well. And I'm quite proud of that. When I think about the impact that we had, the fact that we're looking at 4.1 versus 2.7, that's us. That's SEIU healthcare that did that. That's our members who have been lobbying for this for years and finally found the right combination and the right moment during a horrible time to press it and say, if not now, when? We need this now. And if we weren't there making that case, it wouldn't happen. I was talking to a reporter in Columbia County for a local newspaper, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Dwayne, this nursing home that's in this community, they really need help. You know, they got like someone had dinner, they had cottage cheese and applesauce. Like they were just like the conditions are horrible. This is what's happening there. Like, what are they going to do?" And I was like, "Well, what facility is it? It's this." And you know what? They don't have a union. They have no idea how to go on strike, how to actually affect change, how to make demands. Like they're not used to working together on those things. But when SEIU does it, when we got in front of the Department of Health and said we need 4.1, guess what? That's not just for our nursing home. It's for every nursing home in the state of Pennsylvania that's going to have to follow that. We're actually fighting for everyone in that sector, in that industry, because we know that lifting one person lifts us all. You know, that's what we realize. That's, you know,
Proverbial rising tide.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so Jeff, I think it's many faceted. It is definitely member centered. It includes a variety of community outreach and working with local, state, and federal officials. You know, we've been running programs now with Walk a Day in Our Shoes. We had Senator Bob Casey show up at several home health care facilities and actually spend a day with a home healthcare worker to see the kind of work that they've done. And he's dug in on that. We've seen Congressman Cartwright over and over again, visiting nursing homes, working with people, actually seeing and understanding what is happening, like digging in there. I mean, it was amazing. Like they really stepped up too in the beginning of the pandemic. I know I was working with a union to try and make masks. They were making baseball uniforms, and so we converted them into making masks, and they were helping us to distribute those. We were working with the local labor councils in order to try to provide, at that point, there were real shortages in healthcare. And so I'd like to thank like the Greater Wilkes-Barre Labor Council, who helped to get thousands of masks into the hands of the workers at Hershey Medical Center at one point. Like there was all this networking that was going on. And it's because of a program, a union being actively involved in the community, in state politics, in federal politics, but also lifting up the voices of our members in their local facilities.
There was a 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. The phone line remains open. We will let Dwayne get back to his life. It is a Sunday evening, by the way, right around the top of the hour. And the phone line remains open. So if you want to get to Dwayne, do it in the next 15 minutes because he has been beyond kind, way beyond kind and generous with his time. So we're going to let him go around 8. And I will say goodnight to you shortly after that. And then we'll see what we're up to downstairs. Hopefully, you know, we'll see what, if you're with me for the first half hour, you know what I'm talking about. There was a nationwide shortage of nurses before this pandemic. I understand that you're not nationwide, but for the area that you cover or for the Commonwealth, perhaps as a whole, what has happened to the number of nurses and home health care and nursing home staff since this pandemic? I have to assume, and I will admit that it is only an assumption, that quite a number of them have just walked away and said, I'm not doing this anymore.
So I think you've kind of identified a little bit of it, Jeff. The nurses are there, like the healthcare workers are there, but they've just decided to go elsewhere because they weren't being compensated. They weren't getting the healthcare they need. They didn't have good working environments, all of those things. Like, and, you know, at the same time that many of these facilities were receiving all kinds of tax dollars and so forth, it wasn't ending up at bedside. And by ending up at bedside, it means like providing the kind of jobs where people will actually dig in and stay there and do that kind of work. And so just a little bit of pushback on a shortage of nurses because they're there. It's just an unwillingness for us to actually pay for it. That's the thing right there. And by pay for it, you know, when we talk about the example of home health care, and remember, these are all kinds of workers, not just nurses, but all kinds of healthcare workers.
Again, food service, sanitation, clean, housekeeping, right.
Technicians, you know,
maintenance. Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. And so, you end up with a situation where they leave and you don't have the staff to do it. And then and to prove it, like, you know, you have all these like sign-on bonuses that they'll use and different things to get folks on board instead of actually raising things. So it's interesting to see when like we've had several of our members actually reject like these one-time bonuses and say, we don't want this one-time bonus. We want to make a little bit more per hour. And we want that to be permanent, not something like this. You know what? Take your pizza party and shove it. I don't want a pizza party. I actually want decent healthcare, right? That's bullshit. You know, and
I see outside the facilities that I visit, these very large banners, you know, now hiring, immediate hire, $1,000 bonus, sign-on bonus, and all that. And I think a good number of folks can probably drive by that and have a very passing, quick thought, because again, they're living their lives. They're in the middle of goodness knows what they're doing in the middle of a day, and they just see, that sounds pretty darn good. And they don't think of it the way that you just mentioned it. I think it's a very important point. Oh, well, they bought lunch for everybody every Friday, or they did, well, maybe one Friday a month or whatever, or here's an extra 500. That's a one-time thing. Quite frankly, I'm making $15. I'd like to make $18 because that's probably permanent. And it means a hell of a lot more to me. You know, all these folks need the $500 or $1,000, but like you said, that's a kind of a tricky wink and a nod sort of thing. Like, here's a one-time little, you know, extra cheese on your pasta, but once you eat the pasta, it's gone. Or you can keep giving me pasta.
And this is happening in an environment where CEOs and, you know, a handful, you have one large healthcare system that has, you know, like thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, and there's a handful of like 10 people who all make like $1 million, right? Like, and your average pay is like crazy. In some of the facilities, it's, you know, less than $15 an hour. And then you wonder why. There's no wondering. They know damn well why there's a shortage of workers. Everyone knows, right?
And we have to admit, we have to realize, and I think most people, I think there's a good number of people that do on both sides of the aisle. That $1 million, how much care, direct patient care, my goodness, even if it's a more substantial mattress or a better quality of soup cracker or a puffier pillow or a nurse or a custodian or a maintenance engineer or something, how much more care could you get? It's the same thing when we talk for-profit education. How much more care could you provide for the $1 million here, the $1 million there? I'm reminded of Senator Ted Kennedy in his impassioned speech earlier in the 2000s. I want to say it's in the 2004 area, when they were trying to raise the minimum wage. And he stood up, and it's like a 13-minute long speech, and I need to at some point crop the real important part of it so that I can play it for you folks in the midst of a program. When does the greed stop? How much more do you want from these working people? When does the greed stop? That $1 million salary is $1 million of denied care.
You know,
some of the some part.
The number of people like in hospitals or in nursing homes, like the number of people that they have to take care of, like they don't have time to actually maybe talk to someone for a minute or two, or brush their hair, right? Or maybe even get to them in time to get them into a restroom, you know, and they've soiled themselves. And like that kind of stuff happens over and over and over again. And and then we blame the healthcare worker, right? When in fact, they just don't have enough people on staff. It's just not possible to get that done. And especially during a pandemic, right? That becomes even more challenging to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that's something that it makes me think about, you know, and then the opposite side of that, when you have the CEOs that are, you know, raking in, making more money than they've ever made, you know, and getting rewarding for shutting down a facility because that helped their bottom line. It's disgusting.
Because we're not just talking about profits, we're talking about record profits
Oh, yeah.
and record salaries. And during the New Deal, from the roughly 1933 to 1980 range, the average CEO made 40 times their lowest paid worker. It's now 300, 400, 700 times their lowest paid worker.
Yeah, yeah. So the good news is that we are digging in and doing the work that we need to do. Our members are strong. We've had several new facilities organized underneath us or with us, as part new union members, which is exciting. We've had victories in front of us too, with contracts that we've won. We have the Department of Health looking at changing, these standards. There's been a lot of great work. We are, of course, jumping on board. We need this reconciliation package to happen. And the good news is that the Pennsylvania delegation is holding strong. Like, I would love to make sure that Senator Casey and Congressman Cartwright, who have been incredible, Susan Wild, all the people who have been incredible champions of ours, to make sure that we double down and call Chuck Schumer, call Nancy Pelosi, let them know how important both of these bills are to the state of Pennsylvania. We realize the impact that it would have, not only on healthcare workers, but for our families, all the things that are in these packages, for our infrastructure, that Pennsylvania, the citizens of Pennsylvania, need both of these things. And if they can let them know that we are standing united, and so far we have, behind both of these that have to move forward. I so appreciate these representatives who have been there, from the beginning, making sure that we are allies and pushing forward with the buyback or Build Back Better program that, Biden was elected to. So these things are, remember, we are right. I don't want to get us too depressed about what I've been describing, because we are on the verge of a moment that we can really, not since the New Deal, which you've mentioned a few times now, where we can really make a change to not only Pennsylvania, but this whole country. So
the hours of care per day, is this a Department of Health, or is this legislation that people should be watching move, or is it both? I mean, is there a bill number that folks could be tuned in on, or is this a Department of Health?
No, it's a little tricky. This is a regulation, so it's
Okay.
not a law. It's a regulation, is what it is, through the Department of Health. But you can keep a heads up. I would, if people would like to follow what's going on, you can check out SEIU Healthcare PA. I have a website. We also have a page on. You can check us out on Facebook. SEIU Healthcare PA. You can get updates on those regulations for the state of Pennsylvania, because we are certain that at some point over the next year, we're going to also need some other letters to talk about, how this regulation is actually rolling out and what the parts of it look like, where we would have commentary period with the Department of Health for you to weigh in. There are hearings that are going on right now in the state legislature too. There's one coming up on the 18th, which is talking about basically the consolidation of healthcare and the decline of, or consolidation of corporations and the decline of healthcare, which is coming up. So all of these things, you can check out the Facebook page, check out the website, so that you can connect with some of those things. And there's plenty of room if you are involved in healthcare. There's plenty of room if you're involved with an organization that wants to get involved, or if you just want to plug in. Absolutely, there's a space for it. My easy email is dwayneheisler@gmail.com. You can send me a message. I'll be happy to plug you in. If you don't know how to get involved with your local progressive organization, I can certainly find a path for you. We can help you there, and I'd be happy to do that.
Is this, real quick before I just turn the floor over to you again, is this the kind of thing that folks can call the Department of Health the way we would call our legislators, or is it not quite the same thing?
Well, the public commentary, we did have people calling in. We had several parts of the campaign. You know, a campaign is really an arc of work that was going on. Did have moments where we were calling the Department of Health, when we were calling certain legislators, when we were actually writing letters, and we were texting, we were messaging, we were doing all the things. There were social media posts. There was a whole like toolkit around it to actually get the word out and actually weigh in. Which I have to say, even just those letters, the letters to the Department of Health during that public commentary period, it was like a 30-day period. We had thousands and thousands and thousands, and the industry had a few hundred that they sent in. So it was very telling, like how important this is, and the support of the people of Pennsylvania to get behind this and demand that we take better care of the people we love. And remember, it's not just seniors. There's a lot of people who are involved in nursing homes that are not elderly, but have some other reason that they need to have that kind of care, that kind of like 24-hour care. So, yeah.
And I mention on the program all the time that, you know, at the beginning of the Trump regime, Republicans had control of the White House, the Supreme Court, and both houses of Congress. And they went after the ACA, full repeal, destruction, strip healthcare, strip health coverage, because it isn't care, coverage from 40 million people at a minimum, 40 million. That was a low number. I bet the figure was more than that. It was phone calls and letters and marches and news reports and articles and letters to the editor and social media activity that saved that. And it does work. So the fact, you know, when you mention it, the department gets thousands of calls. Those calls mean something, folks. They mean something. I give the congressional switchboard number here an awful lot. I will give it again before we leave you tonight. But those calls do mean something. They really do. I think sometimes we rain down a little bit upon the share monsters at home that, you know, share. There's a word for that. I'm forgetting the term for it. The social media warriors, or the homebound social media warriors. But you know what? That does help. If you have, you know, 100 friends on Facebook, or 200 or 500 or 1,000 or 20,000, and they see an article about some type of action or consolidation or shutting a hospital down here that they didn't, or a nursing home really, that they didn't know about, and they see it and then they get active, well, then that helps. So your phone calls and all that help. Dwayne, as we approach the end of the program for you, because I'm going to be here for a few more minutes, I cannot, I don't have enough thanks. And I don't have enough ways to say thank you, because this is a long night for you. I'm sure it's been a long day. You have long days every day, but I'm sure this has been no different. And you've been beyond gracious and kind with your time and your knowledge and your experience. And I have learned things here. I don't always learn stuff every week, because it's sometimes we agree a tad too much. But I have learned tonight, and I have other things to study and new ways of thinking of things. But before I let you go, I do want to tell you that I have bad news for you. You are part of our family now. So I very much hope that this is not the only time that we see you on our program. I hope that we may please call upon you again at some future date to talk about these things, to explore other areas as well, whether it's on your own, part of a roundtable. And I also invite you and remind you the phone number, well, you have the link now, that if there is an urgent, you know, piece of business that you think people need to know about, then please come back and tell us about it. You don't have to stay all night, even though you're always welcome to do that. But if there's a 5, 10 minute, 15-minute pop that you need to come in and let people know about something super important, I hope you know that you can do that. If there is any topic, issue that we did not get to cover, if there is something that we covered that you don't think we came to a nice end on, in addition to, you did mention it a little bit earlier, how people can follow you, reach you, learn about the union, learn about what you're doing. I just want to open the floor to you. All of that is at your disposal. Please do whatever it is that you wish you will. Anything, like I said, we missed, didn't conclude, contact, all of that. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, first of all, thank you. That was very kind. I have an ask. And so for everyone that is listening right now, I would ask you that you contact your member of Congress. I don't care what county you're in, what part of the state, is it rural, is it urban, is it in Pennsylvania? It doesn't matter. wherever you are in the country, if you're a US citizen, I want you to contact your member of Congress. I don't care if they're a Republican or a Democrat. And I just want you to find out, if you do not know, are they supporting the reconciliation bill? Are they supporting the infrastructure bill? Both of those bills. And if the answer to both of those are yes, I want you to thank them. I want you to tell them that you understand how important it was that they do this, and also to maybe ask them to contact the leadership to let them double down on their positions. I would say that this has not been easy, and if they can thank their member of Congress for doing that, be great. If for some reason they are not on board with it, you need to let them know that that's not acceptable, that you think that investing in us, in people, in all of us is important, and that they need to do that and to make that happen. If everyone listening here did that and maybe shared it with 2 or 3 other people and got them to do that, that would be incredible. Jeff provides you with numbers to contact your members of Congress. Please do that. If you are not sure and you do not know, then it's up to you. You can't other this. You can't say it's someone else's fault. You need to find out what your representative in Congress is doing right now in this moment, because it is one of the most critical times in our country, and we're right on the verge of being able to really invest in ourselves, and we shouldn't deny ourselves that.
And one more time, how do people follow or learn, find the union website, Facebook, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so it would be SEIU, that's Service Employees International Union. Just look up SEIU Healthcare PA, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, on we have a website, SEIUPA.org. Go there and you can plug into that kind of work. If you like to contact me personally, that's fine. My name is Dwayne. That's Wayne with a D in front of it. Dwayne Heisler, HEIS as in Sam, LER. Dwayne Heisler at gmail.com. I'll direct you wherever I can or help you out however I can. But if you are moved by what is in front of us and what is currently happening with healthcare or with the Democratic Party or with a progressive organization, you want a way to plug in, I'll be happy to do what I can to make that happen.
Well, very kind of you, sir. I don't, again, I can't thank you enough. I really can't. I would tell you the check's in the mail, but you already know we don't do that. There's no money for that. The budget of this is, close your eyes, you'll see our budget.
Remember, I worked in the debt collection business.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Checks in the
yeah,
mail.
I've certainly had those calls. I can tell you that. And it's medical debt too. It's
Yeah.
medical debt. Yeah. The debt that supposedly isn't supposed to be collected that way, and yet it still happens. Thank you. Just thank you. I mean, I don't have enough to say other than thank you. I could say it probably 1,000 different ways, but it's not going to, it doesn't cover it. It doesn't cover the amount of time that you spent with us or the amount of knowledge that you've provided us, the expertise and so on. And like I said, I very much hope, with all sincerity, that I hope this isn't the only time that we get to see you here in this forum. I mean, I'm going to see you later on in the week, probably, and probably in a square. but I just hope that this is not the only time that you grace our program. You're very kind and gracious with your time, and the work that you do is absolutely important. I think wherever you are in the political spectrum, fighting for the workers that take care of our family members and our community members and the older citizens and the older residents of our communities and our Commonwealth, that's God's work. I don't know how anybody could not look favorably upon that. So thank you so much for being here. Go get some dinner.
Have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's Dwayne Heisler with SEIU Healthcare, a friend, a now friend of the show. And we are really, really thrilled that he was here and spent so much time with us. It's a lot of time, folks, to spend. I talk a lot about Tom Hartman on this program and how he's a real guiding light for how to do this kind of thing. And I've been doing radio since I was in high school, since before, there was a Tom Hartman or there was a Stephanie Miller, but obviously being the most listened to progressive talk host in the country, you're doing something right. So I listen to him every day and I try to learn from him. His guests are usually only one segment and then he moves on. But then again, he has, hundreds of people who call per day. We don't have that. So the ability to, and why don't we have that, folks? I've been begging you. But he doesn't do long form the way that we do. And it's a shame because he has such wonderful guests. I think long form discussions. He's been doing a little more actually lately. He's been having a discussions with Great Minds series where you do an entire hour on the program. It's 1 hour per week. So for Dwayne to take so much time with us is very, very gracious and very, very kind. And, we're a better program for it. I couldn't have a program without good folks like him and all the folks who have joined us in this, year and a half long journey. We couldn't have a program without it. I could talk to you probably for 4 hours. I probably could. But if you don't call, that gets real repetitive and real boring. And even I run out of things to say after that long. So we had a couple of callers tonight. The phone line is still open. I'll be here with you for a couple more minutes because I got a couple of things I want to get off my chest before we go away. It's 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. We'll probably wrap up around the 8:15 Eastern time here in the United States area. Remember, you can always get to hot101.net. We happen to think we're a great part of hot101.net. We'd like to think we're the jewel in the crown, but we're really not. We're just a part of it. And they are there 24/7. I really ask you to check out hot101.net. Morning show will be on TCP tomorrow. And of course, you can always find us and this program everywhere that it's been accepted to be shared across the Facebook universe. If you want to share it on your own personal timeline and page, please do so. If you want to share it to groups that we're not a part of, I beg you to do that. The more people that listen, the better. We could not be here if you are not there. If you have missed any of today's program, you can go to Instagram, That Other Side of Information. You can find me on Twitter, That Other Side of Information, at That Kennedy Talk. You can find me on LinkedIn at Jeff Kennedy. You can find me on Facebook at Jeff Kennedy, and of course our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. You can find all of our programs there, all of our show announcements, in ongoing news about past guests of our program. News stories, and not all just news stories of things that might happen to share my point of view, but science stories. There was a story I posted this week about how you could see a meteor shower, and then ironically I forgot all about it. I think I've missed it now. I might be able to duck outside and maybe see it because it went to the 10th. But there was a meteor shower this past week, and it was an easy one to see because you could see it right after dusk. You didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. to find it. There are a lot of environmental, animal advocacy, and of course, politics and economy. But check out the Facebook page. Another thing about the Facebook page, and I'm asking you, I'm going to make an ask. Dwayne made an ask, and I'm going to make an ask. I have a very interesting reminder kind of conversation with April Riddick this week. We've heard a lot after the whistleblower testimony from Ms. Haugen about how Facebook algorithms work. Well, one of the components of said algorithm is that groups like mine, group pages like mine, the Other Side of Information, have some proliferation, but that level of proliferation increases once we pass 1,000 members. We are just at about 900 right now. I think it was 898 when I logged on. I'm asking you to take our group and share it to 5 of your friends. I would ask you to share it to your entire friend network, but I'm sure there's somebody in there that they're not going to care. Even if you just share it to 5 people, if the 900 of you share it to 5 people, that's 4,500, and we break that 1,000, then the group will become much more prolific across Facebook, and folks who've never heard of me or heard of the group or heard of any of it will start to see it. So we're asking you to do that, and I will put that on the page. I need to put that on the page at some point. So if the 900 of you shared to 5 different people, we would break that 1,000 and become a much bigger and more prolific group. And again, The one social media I forgot to mention, of course, is YouTube. If you have missed any of this program or any of our programs, go to youtube.com, the app, the website, however it is you choose to get to YouTube, and search That Other Side of Information. And I know it's become a bit of a joke kind of thing. Like and subscribe, but we need you to do so. Please like our page on Facebook, be a member of That Other Side of Information, invite people to be a member of That Other Side of Information, give us a subscribe on YouTube, give us a like, follow on Twitter and Instagram, find me at LinkedIn. This is how the program survives. And maybe someday before my days are done, this will actually be my full-time job and I'll be with you every day, the way I'd always dreamed, 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. That would be something. But so we are at 11. I just read that backward. That was a little dyslexic of me, wasn't it? It's 8:12 p.m. Let me tell you, the phone line remains open. If we don't hear from anyone, we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes. 267-227-9189. The plan for the next 2 weeks is local candidates and local elections anywhere in the United States. If I get, I've put the call out on our Facebook page several times. Obviously, most of the folks have come from in here in the Commonwealth, and that's fine. It's where I live. It's where most people know me. They recognize me and so on. I want to fill the program the next 2 weeks with local elections, local, there's a call coming in, so I'm getting distracted. I want to fill the program with local candidates in local elections for the next 2 weeks. If you are running for dog catcher, and I know that sounds kind of like a joke, but I mean, if you're running for tax collector, if you're running for your local municipal council, mayor, a county council, if you're running for county treasurer, you're especially school boards. School board members are quite literally under violent attack across this country, but yet you have stepped up to run for this position instead of the folks who are resigning and running from it. We want to hear from you for at least the next 2 weeks. I am unclear as of now whether I'm going to do a program on Halloween night, because we will be having trick-or-treating here at the house and it might be a little distracting. We actually are having our trick-or-treat here in Lower Saucon Township on Halloween night and right while I'm on the air. So that might be a tad distracting. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be with you yet Halloween, but for the next 2 weeks, the 17th and the 24th, local candidates in this odd year election cycle. And again, not just letting them talk about themselves, but also the importance of what it is that they're running for and why these offices are so important and why the offices that they're running for are important and how they affect you. Randall, you called me twice in a show, but because I love you, sir, I'm going to let you speak. Have a go, sir.
Yes, Jeff, I absolutely have procrastinated too many months, and I'm going to put out among all my Facebook friends to watch your show on Facebook. And number two, I'm going to talk to my Democratic friends that are running for borough council and Democratic friends that are running for our local school board to reach out and, hopefully one or more will offer to talk with you about the subjects that you just discussed that need to be talked about for our local elections this coming November 2nd. And thank you again.
Well, you rock, brother. Listen, I'm thrilled that you're here. I shouldn't be so restrictive, I guess, on you calling because nobody else is doing it, but I keep hoping. It's my one thread of hope every week that I
keep praying that other people call it.
I mean, is it such a bad experience, Randall, that are you treated so shabbily that no one else calls? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I miss too much of your shows every week that you're on.
I mean, 5
o'clock, the kids, the 3 daughters, the 3 son-in-laws, the grandkids are over for a family dinner,
right?
And I can't usually tune in until 6:30.
Well,
I apologize for that.
Put us on in the background, my friend. Let it be white noise in the background. But listen, what Randall's willing to do is truly important. I wish it wasn't this way. I wish it was more simple things like, maybe even old, quote unquote, old fashioned type things like billboards and ads in newspapers. But when Randall goes onto Facebook and goes through his friends list and invites people to our group page, or just sends them a quiet note and says, hey, by the way, I've been listening to this on Sundays. I think you might like it. It means the world to us. It truly does. We are in an electronic data, zeros and ones binary. Oh God, I finally remembered what I was saying. In a binary sort of world. I want to get the Facebook page over 1,000 members. It changes everything for us about the number of people who see us and will be exposed to the group and to the program. If you go to YouTube, give us a subscribe. You don't even have to watch it every week, although that is the place to watch the whole program if you miss any of it. But the more people that subscribe, you'll get a note every time we post something. You'll get an alert. You can watch it there. You can watch it on the recorded version. You want to watch 20 minutes at a time while you're at work during the week. You'll get through the whole program. I mean, that's what the YouTube channel is there for. So these likes, these subscribes, the follows and all that, it might sound trite. It might sound goofy. It might sound horribly, millennial and all that fun. It's probably going to piss off all the millennials, but all that stuff, it might sound ridiculous, but when Randall says, hey, I'm inviting you to this page, or has a chat with somebody on the street while they're having coffee or having a pint and says, I think you should listen to this. I think you'd enjoy it. It means the world to us. So thank you for doing that, sir. I appreciate it.
Real quick, is your YouTube channel under the free YouTube? Because I can't afford to pay for
it is free. That's a really excellent point, because I've never mentioned that before. You do not need to pay for YouTube Premium to get to our YouTube channel. Again, that other side of information. If you go to YouTube, go to the search bar, that other side of information, you will find us. And then if you just click subscribe or tap or whatever, subscribe, you will know when we post a new program, and you will know if I do anything else there, you'll know about it straight away. TikTok as well. I actually remembered to do a TikTok thing tonight. Maybe that's why there was more people in the chat.
Yeah, that's good, because I got millennium daughters.
Right.
And they're into that stuff.
Well, I guarantee you, I do not dance or sing on TikTok, and you wouldn't want to see such a thing. Trust me, you would not want to see that. What I normally just do on TikTok, I should be doing rants on them during the week when they pop into my brain. I don't. I try to save it for the program, and then I usually forget about it. But what I normally do there is just an announcement of, hey, we're going live in a couple of minutes or in an hour or a couple hours, and here's what we're doing, and please join us. So again, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, what am I forgetting? And of course, Facebook. Like, subscribe, follow, blah, blah, blah. You get it. Thanks, Randall. I appreciate you, my friend.
Again, God bless. Have a good evening.
And your candidates that you just have them find me on Facebook or Messenger, whatever it is. And
I'm gonna try and figure out how to technologically do that, because I'm 69 and kind of illiterate, but I'm going to try.
Sounds good, my friend. You take care of yourself and stay healthy. All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
That should do it for us, folks. I want to thank you all for being here. I know the first half hour, 40 minutes of the program wasn't pleasant. It's not pleasant topics. I don't know what I'm going to find when I go downstairs. I imagine I'm going to get yelled at by Sis that she's hungry, then I'm going to put a bowl of food in front of her, and then she's going to walk away from it because I think she's shutting down. And it's going to be a very different house very soon. And so I think we're naturally wired to hug the kids and hug our grandparents and parents and brothers and sisters and so on. But I'm telling you, if you have a furry family member in your home, please don't treat them any differently. They are family. These souls, not creatures, these souls, these sentient, wonderful souls They love and they feel and they hurt and they're happy and they're sad and they're tired. Sometimes they get colds and belly aches, just like us. Give them a hug. Treat them well. Give them an extra treat. Sneak them an extra treat every now and then. Give them an extra kiss on the head. Because it is a very, very cruel twist of fate that they do not have the lifespans that we have. It's exceptionally cruel. And there's a part of me that wishes that she's just asleep when I go downstairs. No, like she will be. There's a part of me that just wishes that she would just go to a better place on her own, naturally, peacefully, without any pain or discomfort. I don't think that's how it's going to go, but I kind of wish that. And but we'll see. She's diabetic now, so supposed to get some insulin for her tomorrow and start her on insulin, and hopefully that will make her feel better. But I actually worry if we're going to make it that far. So just hug those furry kids. Take care of them. They deserve, as a whole of an animal population, they deserve better than we give them. And you know, Sis is everything that people hate about cats. I got to tell you, she's aloof. She's stubborn. It's her world, and we're just living in it. And yet, I know that she loves me, and she always has. And you know, another chip is going to be taken out of me when she's gone, and I think it'll probably be before the end of the month. So take care of them. And you know, I talked at the beginning of the program about these, you know, not side issues, but the issues that are damn important, but that we don't always talk to our legislators about. And you know, if I ever run for office again, I will make to end animal cruelty, animal safety, animal advocacy, to change the status of these souls in our society. They're not property. Sis is not my property. She's a sentient, conscious, self-aware being. She's much more like a child than a piece of property. If she doesn't want to go outside, well, she doesn't go outside anyway, but if she doesn't want to eat something, she doesn't eat it. If she doesn't want to lay on my lap, she doesn't lay on my lap. You wouldn't force your kid to eat something. You wouldn't force your kid outside. You wouldn't force your kid to sit on your lap. We force our children to do certain things for their own good, but they have personalities. They have opinions. So does she. And every furry child I've ever had, they have opinions, they have personalities. They matter. They count. They're family. And I would, if I do ever run for office again, it's going to be to change the status of these animals to something more akin to children than property. We can certainly do better. But I'll keep you up to date. You know, you all are kind enough to listen about it. I guess it is a little bit of self-whining. And I guess I am a tiny bit sorry for myself, but I am. It's hard to have a presence like that in your life every day for 20 years, and then it's gone. And she will be soon. And I'll lose another little piece of myself. No, I'll lose a big piece of myself. You know, I'm afraid of being a little over philosophical. I mentioned at the beginning of the program that we're kind of all of us are kind of like sculptures. And that all these losses, they take a piece out of you. Serious illness, someone comes with the hammer and the chisel and they take a piece. A family member passes, they take a hammer and chisel and they take a piece. You're in a relationship and it ends, you take a piece. You lose a job, you take a piece. Until there aren't any pieces left. And then that's the course of our lives. and she will take a big piece. I don't think you can see a living creature. I shouldn't keep using the word creature. I don't think you can see a living sentient being, be it mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, wife, child, dog, cat, bird, neighbor, teacher. I don't think you can see any of them every single day for 20 years and not be profoundly broken when you have to say goodbye to them. So I beg you, as I do at the end of every program every week, please talk to one another. Let's not have arguments. Let's talk to one another. Help out your neighbors. See if they need groceries. When winter comes, help them shovel snow, help them rake leaves, bring the garbage cans in from the curb, whatever it might be. Let's talk to each other. We are a community. We are a society. We are a human family. So until next week, the plan is to return next week. And I did it probably 10 times. If you were doing shots every time I did it, you probably can't walk or reach for the wrong mouse. Until next week. There might be one less of us next week. What am I going to do without her? What am I going to do? Until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other. And thank you for being here. I appreciate you very, very much. Please take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week.